Hereby call to order the Roseville Economic Development Authority meeting for Monday, November 24th, 2025. Mr. City Manager / Executive Director, could you call the roll, please?
Member Shorter?
Here.
Member Groff?
Here.
Member Bauer?
Here.
Member Strawn?
Here.
President Rowe?
Here. And with us at the dais by way of introductions, we have our attorney, Rachel Tierney, who's on my right at the very end of the dais, our City Manager / Executive Director of the EDA, Pat Trudgeon, who's on my left at the end of the dash. I'll do a quick check of the room. Can folks in the room hear me okay? Is the PA coming over the speakers all right? Not in the back? Now it is? Okay. Always want to check. When I can't hear myself echoing back, then I know something's up. Wanted to make folks aware that are here from the public that we do have extra copies of the meeting agendas on the back table by the door under the big clock. Feel free to grab one of those if you need to follow along with the agenda of the meeting. We also do have a 3-ring binder that has a complete set of all the materials that are here for the meeting that the council and the EDA will be considering this evening. That is available, one copy to share amongst everybody who may need to access that over the course of the meeting. We'll deal with other housekeeping issues as they might need to be talked about, but the one thing I do want to remind folks, if you do have a cell phone, to be sure and silence that or otherwise assure that it doesn't disrupt the meeting this evening. And with that, we'll ask folks to stand if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on tonight's Economic Development Authority agenda this evening is approval of tonight's agenda, and as always, we'll check with our Executive Director, Mr. Trudgeon, to see if there are any changes that need to be made to the agenda this evening.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we would like to remove for consideration tonight item 5C. The representative from Habitat for Humanity cannot make the meeting tonight, and we'd like that person to be part of the conversation. So we will defer any conversation on that until our January EDA meeting. So you can remove 5C from the agenda.
All right, and I'll check with members of the EDA. Are there any other changes that EDA members would like to make to the Economic Development Authority agenda for this evening? Does not appear to be the case. With that, then, we'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda as amended to remove item 5C from the business items.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Groff, seconded by Member Shorter. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have our agenda for this evening. Next, I will note that while it's listed on the agenda here as public comment, we generally move the general public comment in each meeting. When we have an EDA meeting, we move that to the start of the council meeting, which starts right after this EDA meeting. So we'll do that as has been our practice, which means we'll move right into our business items this evening for the Economic Development Authority. Our first item, item 5A, is to consider a resolution of support for the Oyate Ota Center's grant applications to Ramsey County for grants they're seeking in support of their reuse of the church at 965 Larpenteur Avenue. We have our Housing and Economic Development Program Manager, Jeannie Kelly, with us this evening to bring this item before the EDA. Welcome, Jeannie.
Thank you, President Rowe and board members. In your packet for your consideration is a resolution of support for Ramsey County application. They are right now seeking to do a site assessment. If any environmental from that site assessment, if they are awarded that grant, they'll do a site assessment. If there are any environmental determinations from that site assessment, they will then seek to apply for environmental funds through Ramsey County. And in addition to, we're looking at once the county has their CDBG grant funds available for application, they're looking to apply for those grant funds to do the rehab of the building. So there's a resolution for all three of those items in your packet for your consideration.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kelsey. Appreciate that information. Are there questions for staff, for members of the board? Questions from members of the board? All right. Is there a representative of the applicant here this evening who wishes to speak in support of this resolution of support for the grant applications? Does not appear to be the case. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this item this evening, which is once again a request for a resolution of support for 3 different applications that this applicant is making for various grants in support of their project? Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak to this item this evening? It does not appear to be the case. Then we'll move to board consideration. We've got the resolution attachment 1 included in our information this evening, and the request is to adopt that resolution in support of those grant applications.
I move approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Member Graff, seconded by Member Strawn. Discussion on that motion. As the maker of the motion, Member Graff?
No, this just allows, in my opinion, allows them to get the grants that would help to prepare the building and solve any environmental issues, and also make it usable for the purposes that they are asking for. So pretty straightforward.
All right, other discussion on the motion. As the seconder, Member Strawn?
I'm thankful that they are able to continue to moving forward, and I appreciate that forward progress. Hopefully they'll get all the things they need in short time.
All right, other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we've got the motion before us to adopt the resolution attachment A in support of those various grant applications as outlined. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That resolution is approved. That then brings us to our second business item this evening, which is item 5B. That is to consider a resolution authorizing a grant agreement with Ramsey County Housing and Redevelopment Authority and revised documents related to the Community Land Trust Program in Roseville. And once again, Ms. Kelsey is here for this item.
Thank you, President Rowe, board members. And for your consideration tonight is the EDA has been awarded 2 grants. The first one was applied for through the Livable Communities Demonstration Account through the Met Council. We were awarded $375,000 for 50% of the total gap for a minimum of 3 homes in that grant application. And then in addition to, we have received grant funds from the county in the total amount of $620,000 for down payment assistance of up to $95,000 per home at each closing. The EDA is able on the Met Council grant to reimburse themselves from that Met Council grant, the $80,000, and anything above and beyond that. That's why we have amended the grant agreement with, master grant agreement with Habitat, is to allow them then to be reimbursed for some of the gap funds as well for up to $125,000 for each of the homes. The Ramsey County grant funds are not a match requirement, nor are the LCDA, but the Ramsey County funds would be just for down payment assistance and does not reimburse the EDA at all for their investment of $80,000 per home. And you have in your packet then for the consideration, and I wanted to make you aware of one batch handout, was an error from the last time you amended this agreement, was on November of 2023, I want to say November 6th, and that by accident the wrong guidelines got put into the packet. So we wanted to give that. It's also been corrected on the documents live on the website as well, just for you to be aware of that. And then so for your consideration tonight, you will be doing the resolution of support to Ramsey County authorizing the executive director and president to enter into that grant, as well as amendments to the second amendment to a reinstated master long-term affordability grant agreement. And that is how the use of the funds for the grants are applied with Habitat. In addition to, there's just one other document, and that document is not signed at this time. It's signed only upon each loan closing, and that's the development agreement for each of the homes, because of the determination upon a home closing to the future owner is when it's determined how much subsidy do we need to put into the grants, because it's based upon the eligible income of the person who's buying the home. If you have any questions, I'm certainly here to answer them. In addition to, our attorney here has drafted the documents and the amendments.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kelsey. Are there questions for staff on this proposal? Member Schroeder.
I'm just curious, how do we determine who gets to buy these homes?
So Habitat has an application process, and it has to be an individual that comes through their process, because Habitat also is the end ends up being the lender as well. So they all have to be income qualified to meet that requirement of our program plus Habitat's program.
So they verify the information and then they provide that to you.
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff? Member Bauer.
I don't remember seeing this Ramsey County grant come before us. I was trying to look. Did the council give approval for application of this
No,
grant?
the EDA did not give that authorization. We have received it before and received authorization, and so we were just underneath the assumption to continue to apply for that grant.
I do know that I think other grants, even smaller ones, typically come before either the council or this body. Was this just overlooked, or was just that staff decided that it wasn't necessary?
I think we were underneath the assumption that the EDA would support wanting to have more assistance for the Habitat program since it's an existing program.
Yeah, I do know with some of these that there's matches and whatnot in this case, but I'd definitely be for even, if it's done in the past, coming before us to just get approval. I know it was done with, for example, the Met Council one. I mean, there it was required, but
Right.
it's always nice to know what we're committing to. Otherwise, we end up with the funds after the fact.
And certainly, we have the ability to not accept a grant if
Correct.
we choose not to. But the other thing I would say too, just to clarify, so this particular grant had been applied to and applied for and received for this program in the past?
Correct.
Okay, so the presumption was that because it was for the same program, the same grant source, that may not necessarily need to go back to the board. All right, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Trudgeon.
And if I could add, thank you, Councilmember or Member Bauer, in raising the issue here. It is certainly our intent to always bring grant applications ahead of us applying for. That did not happen. I think there were some assumptions made, but we shouldn't make those assumptions. We should make sure being very transparent on making sure we bring them forward. We do have a grant report where we do report them, but that's kind of after the fact. And unless there's some severe timing issues, we do want to make sure we have the time to take it forward. So we'll make sure not only with this program and other programs, we'll continue to strive to bring that on the council beforehand.
Member Strawn.
I'd just like to remind Member Bauer, too, that any concerns you might have should be directed to the city manager and not reflect upon the staff, as we don't oversee them. Thank you.
And I would note, too, there is actually the purpose or the reason that the applications need to come before the council, or in this case, the EDA, is that the city actually has a policy that was adopted by the council that requires grant applications to come before the council or the EDA for that authorization to seek the grant, unless there is an exception for a situation where there's a time issue where there's not a scheduled meeting and the grant deadline is such that and the idea is not that, of course, that, and this would never happen, that sort of, the timing works out that it couldn't get before a council meeting. I mean, anyway, I'll stop that.
Right, and there's solutions to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Those things do happen.
Right. And the policy requires the reporting, which is part of what Mr. Trudgeon referred to. Member Bauer, did you have further follow-up?
Yeah, I had one other question with this. I do know, for example, before it's come before the EDA with our housing study, we have quite a bit of affordable housing currently in the apartment side in Roseville. I'm wondering if we accept these funds, if it's taking away from other communities in Ramsey County. I'm wondering if we're best served, if we're the best community for this, or if it makes more sense for us to refuse these funds so it could be better served elsewhere in Ramsey County.
Then they will not be awarded to any other community, and they'll go back into the future funding sources. So it's a competitive grant application that all communities have the access to apply for their projects. And depending on what Ramsey County gets, because they get $12 million a year in HRA levy funds, plus they have the $12 million a year that they are getting on LAHA funds. They allocate those funds based upon the applications that they receive and their priorities for funding, and also in communities. So Ramsey County also is supposed to give 50% of their funds to suburban Ramsey County. So if they don't have enough applicants for suburban Ramsey County, then it goes all to St. Paul. So that is why it's a competitive round, and they try to give it out and distribute it fairly to all the other communities.
Right, other questions for staff? All right, and I did have one question. So is the down payment assistance grant specific to the Habitat properties or particular properties, or Habitat properties more broadly, or is that assistance available for other down payment assistance in the city?
No, just for the Habitat projects that come through, since it's a partnership that we have, and that's how it was awarded from Ramsey County.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. With that, then we'll check if there is anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this request this evening, which is once again to make some amendments to the agreements related to the grants as outlined, as described in the presentation. Is there anyone here to speak to this item this evening? It does not appear to be the case. With that, once again, we've got the request before us to and just double check here to adopt the resolution authorizing the amendments to the agreements and the execution thereof as outlined.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Groff, seconded by Member Strawn. Discussion on that motion as the maker, Member Groff.
No, nothing further.
All right, as the seconder, Member Strawn.
I certainly wouldn't want to be in a situation where we would refuse these funds, especially after the work of our staff to get us in line for them. And I certainly think that would send a bad message to the community about our furthering home ownership, affordable home ownership, since multifamily is just one part of the home equation in providing affordability. Thank you.
All right, other discussion on the motion? Member Bauer.
I do look forward to, I think it's in January, we have a discussion where we talk about the strategic role of the EDA going forward. I think home ownership is very important. I don't think there's any question about that. How we use these funds, how we award them, and also thinking about it in terms of not just a few individuals, but also as the whole of those that live in Roseville and in Ramsey County, what we do with their tax dollars, I think is quite important. I think everyone's having a challenging time. They just received their property tax statements. So I look forward to a robust discussion in January where we talk about how we want to use these funds, other funds, in the direction of this group.
All right, is there any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we've got the motion before us to adopt the resolution authorizing the execution of the amendments and signing of the agreements as outlined. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That brings us then to the end of our business items for the Economic Development Authority of Roseville this evening. With there being no further business before the Economic Development Authority, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Groff, seconded by Member Schroeder. No discussion on a motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and the Economic Development Authority is adjourned at 6:18 p.m. And we'll just have a short break here to reconfigure for the council meeting, which will be called to order shortly.
Howdy.
All right, I'll call to order the Roseville City Council meeting for Monday, November 24th, 2025 at 6:19 p.m. The roll call will stand for the council meeting as it was called for the Economic Development Authority immediately prior to this meeting, with all members being present. Once again, by way of introductions, I'll note that we have our City Attorney Rachel Tierney, who's on my right at the end of the dais, and our City Manager Pat Trudgeon, who's on my left at the other end of the dais. And we also have a number of staff and guests who will be participating in the meeting and will be introduced as the meeting proceeds. This may be a repeat for some folks, but just want to let folks know that if you need a copy of the agenda of the meeting, there are extra copies on the table in the back of the room under the big clock by the back door, and those are available for individual members of the public who may want to follow along with the meeting. We do also have a complete set of all meeting materials that are being considered this evening in a big binder, which is to be shared by all the attendees this evening. If you need to look up information, please don't take that home with you, as much as you might like it to be a souvenir. Once again, if you have a cell phone, please be sure to silence it or otherwise assure that it doesn't disrupt tonight's meeting. We did the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of the Economic Development Authority meeting, so we will dispense with that at this time and move to consideration of tonight's agenda. And I'll check with City Manager Trudgeon from a staff perspective. Are there any changes required to the agenda this evening?
Mr. Mayor, there's no changes to the agenda from staff.
All right, thank you. Are there any changes that council members would like to make to tonight's agenda or items from the consent agenda that council members would like removed for separate consideration? Does not appear to be the case. And at this time, we always do check with members of the public who are here this evening. We do have a section of our agenda at the end of the agenda, section 10, called the consent agenda. This is a number of items in this case A through J, which are fairly administrative in nature and are usually fairly non-controversial and are taken up at the very end of the meeting in a single motion to make sure that we can handle those as efficiently as possible and not make people sit through those items before we get to the good stuff in the meeting. Is there anyone here this evening who has either a comment or question about an item in section 10, otherwise known as the consent agenda this evening? Anyone for an item in section 10 of the agenda this evening? It does not appear to be the case. In that case, I believe a motion to approve the agenda as presented would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Bauer to approve tonight's agenda as presented. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have our agenda for this evening. That brings us then to our first opportunity for public comment. At each meeting and as each agenda item comes up, with the possible exception of the consent items, at the end of the meeting, we do provide an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the council about those items. But we also do want to, at the start of each meeting, provide a chance for people in the public to speak to the council either about items related to city business that are not being considered this evening, or items that may be of interest to people in the community, such as events or those sorts of things. So we'll check at this time, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak under the general public comment at the start of the meeting, once again about items that are not on tonight's agenda? Does not appear to be the case. Given that, then we'll proceed with our agenda this evening, and we don't have anything under recognitions and donations, so we can move right into our business items. Our first business item this evening is to receive a presentation and update from our Metropolitan Council representative, who is Peter Lindstrom. And we welcome you up to the table for your presentation at this time. And I know we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so hopefully that hasn't thrown you off.
Hey, fantastic. No, not so much. In fact, I do, well, I was going to call it a donation, but I'm going to want it back. But it's some lovely wastewater, treated wastewater that I have as a handout.
All right.
We'll just look and not drink.
Yeah. It says do not drink, and I would advise you to follow those instructions. Thanks for having me back. I think it's been close to a couple of years since I had the pleasure of addressing you before, so figured it was a time. This is really a critical time for the Met Council and City, and so I just wanted to swing by for a couple of minutes and just chat about primarily where there are a lot of city Met Council interaction, and I have some colleagues with me. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Speak in the microphone. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Sun. I'm the Community Relations Consultant.
Hello, I'm Merritt Clapp-Smith. I'm with Local Planning Assistance at the Met Council, and I'll jump in after Peter invites me. Thank you.
Indeed.
Welcome.
So I am Peter Lindstrom. I have the pleasure of being your representative on the Met Council, where I've served since 2019. Before that, spent 20 years as an elected official in nice little suburb of Roseville to your south.
Some think of it the other way.
What's that?
Some think of it the other way.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. The great city of Falcon Heights. This is not my full-time gig. This is very much a side hustle for me, although a very important side hustle. My day job is at the University of Minnesota. So the Met Council, we have, I'd say, 5 really big buckets of our work. Environmental services, the wastewater. We have 9 wastewater treatment plants. We have 635 miles of what are called interceptor sewers, where your city sewer links up to our sewer, and that goes to the wastewater treatment plants. Metro transit and transportation planning is another big bucket. We are the regional planning agency, and so we'll talk a little bit more in a few minutes about comprehensive planning. And we are the largest HRA, Housing and Redevelopment Authority, in the state. So we have about 7,000 plus housing vouchers that we administer for residents in our region. And then last but not least, we partner with our 10 parks implementing agencies. So Ramsey County Parks, we help with planning and funding for those 10 implementing agencies. Ramsey County Parks, Three River Parks, Minneapolis Parks and Rec, St. Paul Parks, etc. Most people think of us as transit and wastewater, or buses and flushes. Easy way to remember that. And on the wastewater side, it's amazing. And by the way, if you ever have a chance to tour, have you toured the wastewater treatment plant yet,
I
Mr.
actually
Mayor?
toured it in my day job.
You have with your engineer hat
Right, yes.
on. It is fascinating. So I encourage you, whenever there's an opportunity to take a tour of any one of our wastewater treatment plants, to do so. All of the wastewater in Roseville, all the businesses, residents, goes to the Metro plant. That is our largest wastewater treatment plant, just south of downtown St. Paul. Handles about 100 million gallons of wastewater every single day. It's the last line of defense before that stuff that you have in your hands there hits the Mississippi River or the Minnesota River or the St. Croix River. So really we're in the wastewater treatment industry, but to tell you the truth, we are really in the public health industry. Roseville sends to the Metro plant, I'll quiz you. How many gallons of water do you think all the businesses, the residents in Roseville send to the Metro plant on a yearly basis? Oof.
A lot.
A lot is the correct answer. And to be specific, it's 1 billion gallons. Almost on the nose. 1 billion gallons of wastewater travels through your pipes to our pipes, and then down to just south of downtown St. Paul. We charge you. And by the way, that's 1%, 1.1% of the entire system flow. We charge you for that. We charge you what's called the wholesale rate, and then on top of that, you charge the retail rate to your businesses, your residents. We charge you the wholesale rate. It's about $3.7 million annually, or about $300,000 a month. That is about 35% below the national average. We look at all the comparable wastewater treatment systems out there across the nation, see what they're charging, and ours is about 35% less, which is good. I want to give you credit for taking care of your own inflow and infiltration. I know that's been a priority for the city, and I believe you've received grants. I'm seeing head nods.
Yes.
Yep. For I&I, inflow and infiltration. So kudos to you for doing that. There's no reason we should be treating what is essentially already clean water, groundwater or lake water or rainwater. So the more that all of us can take care of that at the outset, the better we all are at. I also want to give you kudos for applying for and receiving another Met Council grant for water efficiency. I know that you've been a participant of that grant program for a while, where your residents can apply for things like low flow toilets and get a rebate, a healthy rebate, maybe a couple $100 or so, give or take. Also, kudos for putting an equity lens on it. I was reading about that today on your website, how the rebate is dependent on an individual or a household's income. And I thought that was really innovative. And I know that's a popular grant program. I saw you're out of funds, which is good. Like, you want the money to be coming in the door, and then you want it to be going out the door. And so you're doing a great job getting the word out and helping your residents save on their water bill, and helps the region save water, which is a finite source even here in the land of 10,000 lakes. You also are the recipient of a relatively new grant, $53,000, to help residents with their own private lateral line, inflow I&I, with their lateral line. So it's a three-legged stool that we have with wastewater. It's the private lateral line, and that's where I&I can happen. It's the city's sewer lines, that's where I&I can happen. And then the Met Council's sewer as well. And so you are assisting your residents in taking care of that I&I problem. So great job, Roseville. Some significant challenges that we have in the water area. Groundwater recharge, increasing demand for groundwater in our region. The influx of things like, well, large water users like data centers is something that we need to pay close attention to. Widespread, there still continues to be issues with water impairment. Just in our Twin Cities region, I read this today, we have over 400 lakes, waters, streams, including some here right in Roseville, that are impaired in some way, shape, or form. With phosphorus, nitrates, I think we're seeing a doubling in chloride. And these are issues that we need to continue to pay attention to. Anticipated and unknown impacts of climate change, and then just renewing our aging infrastructure. I know for our wastewater treatment plants, I think it's 8 out of the 9 are over 40 years old, and just in continual need of improvement. That's what I'd like to say about water and wastewater. Transit, it's been a big year for transit across the region and in Roseville as well. This spring we launched what's called Network Now. Network Now looks at our transit system, kind of post-COVID. What are the transit trends? We received an influx of funds through a dedicated sales tax back in 2023, and that is really paying dividends for residents across the region, including here in Roseville. We've been able to increase some routes in the area, specifically routes that are from suburb to suburb. Historically, we've been going from suburb into the downtowns, kind of the spoke and wheel look to transit. And so Network Now, we're looking at continuing those routes, but diversifying to more suburb to suburb. So we've made increases to the Route 223 to Maplewood Mall, for example, Rosedale to Maplewood. The 225, the 227, all are seeing increased service, either more rapid service, like going from coming once an hour to coming once every half hour or so, or longer during the day, or increases onto the weekend, things of that nature. And I arrived here by microtransit, which is amazing, is super cool. Roseville is our second location for microtransit. I think you maybe have a map in your packet of the Roseville zone. We call it the Roseville zone, but it's actually part of Arden Hills as well. So cool. It's like Uber and Lyft for transit. You can get picked up at your door or at your place of business, be dropped off at another place within the zone. It's not all of Roseville. There's a specific zone, but it's certainly a big chunk. You can go from door to door. So you can go from your home or place of business to any other place within the zone, or you could go to Rosedale, pick up the A line, bus rapid transit, and go to hook up with the Green Line and go to downtown St. Paul, downtown Minneapolis, go to the airport, all for the same cost. So you're a senior in Roseville, you live in the zone, for $1, a buck, you can go to the airport or downtown Minneapolis or some other place within the zone, to church, to the grocery store, to Roseville City Hall. It's tremendous service and a popular service. We're I think, if we haven't exceeded 20,000 rides, we will be shortly, since it launched in January of this year. And I know you all have been helpful in getting the word out, so thank you very much for that. It's averaging 120 or so rides a day. As I mentioned, I took it here from, took the A line, took the 61, went from work at the university, St. Paul campus, so took the 61 to Snelling and Larpenteur and took the A line up to the transit center. Had the microtransit pick me up there, and it dropped somebody else off and then took me here. Pretty darn slick. If anybody is out there watching, there's an app for that, of course, microtransit app, and it's pretty simple to just say where you are and where you want to go, and you hit go, and it's there in a couple minutes and takes you where you need to go. It's even like Lyft, where you can see the little car or van on the map, and it tells you that you'll be picked up in 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes. So that's pretty slick. Let's see. What else would I like to say? It's a big year for community development with the passage of our own regional plan called Imagine 2050. And as you are likely aware, your comprehensive plan, each city's comprehensive plan, 170 plus cities in the region and counties, you set your own comprehensive plan that match up with our regional plan. And so this will be a big focus for Roseville and the 170 plus other cities in the year or 2 years ahead. I want to thank the mayor for serving on our LUAC, Land Use Advisory Committee. How many years? It's been several years that you've served on LUAC, many years. I won't quiz you. I shouldn't quiz you.
6 years, let's say.
6-7 years that you've served as a member of the Land Use Advisory Committee, which was very instrumental in the land use parts of Imagine 2050 and your own, and then the city's and county's own comprehensive plan. So thank you for that. Also, I want to give kudos for the city. You were talking about grants when I came in, and you've been a very active participant in our Livable Communities grants. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it seems like Roseville is a regular recipient. Owasso Gardens, the partnership with Habitat that you mentioned was a Livable Communities grant through the legislature to the Met Council out to eligible cities. So we're glad to have that partnership as well. I think at this time I will call on Merritt to come on down. Merritt's the sector rep for Roseville and several other cities, and we'll be working hand in hand with your staff as you're working on your comprehensive plan.
Yes, hello, Mayor. Good to see you, members of the council. I am Merritt Clapp-Smith, and I am your local planning assistance representative from our community development team. So that means I'm your kind of point person whenever you have questions about your current comprehensive plan, potential amendments to that plan, or as you look ahead to your 2050 comprehensive plan update. So those updates under Minnesota statute are due at the end of December 2028, so about 3 years from now. That plan will be due, so that gives you a little bit of time to figure out what your approach will be for doing the update. Some cities do sort of full force updates, do a lot of community engagement, kind of relook at things anew. Others feel like they've been doing a lot of planning, looking at the future, and they do kind of a more basic update to their last 2040 plan. So not certain where Roseville is at this point. Despite being a pretty developed city, nevertheless, the forecasts that were identified in the system statement sent to Roseville identified nearly 1,500 new households that are forecasted to come into the city through 2050. So that's quite a bit of additional growth, whether that's in any undeveloped areas you have or through infill and redevelopment. Under Imagine 2050 and through our local planning handbook page resource for Roseville, you can find the minimum requirements of topics that need to be addressed in your comprehensive plan. And the Met Council is developing a lot of tools and resources to support communities in understanding how it is that they need to address those minimum requirements in their plan. I'll specifically note new requirements for natural systems planning and for climate and greenhouse gas emissions. And that requirement was added by the Minnesota legislature. We don't expect all the cities, 181 actually in our region, to have the expertise to address those topics on their own. So we've been developing very robust tools that can be used online, that really anybody can sit down and work through our online tool to look at current inventory for your community for greenhouse gas emissions, and gives kind of a menu of different ideas about if you want to try to bring down kind of your trajectory for growth on that, down what different techniques you might want to consider as the city. So same with natural systems, trying to make these new requirements as easy as possible for communities, whether you're doing it in-house or you're hiring a consultant team. So with that, I'll ask if you have any questions, but if not tonight, please reach out to me anytime as you start to update your 2050 plan and things come up that you'd like to discuss.
All right. Any questions from the council for anyone from that council who's here this evening? Mr. Bauer.
Thank you again for coming and presenting. Always appreciate it. As you've noted, we do work closely together. Just a couple questions. One, about the comprehensive plan that is coming up. I'm curious, as someone new here, what areas of the comprehensive plan are not working for you that you would like to see changed? It's an large amount of work for, all the cities, all 181, as you said, and you can imagine the amount of money and time and people that involves. I'm just curious from your perspective, are you getting the value that you need out of that? And I'm curious to know, what areas you're not getting that information and what changes you've kind of put in place with this new upcoming comprehensive plan to address that.
Yeah, I can't speak. I haven't read your 2040 comprehensive plan in detail, so I can't speak to that one. What I would say is that our minimum requirements are really intended to identify kind of the basic things that your comprehensive plan needs to address across transportation, land use, housing, water, and wastewater. And one thing we've tried to do based on feedback from last time is be really clear about what it would look like to address those requirements in the plan. So if it's tables or maps, what do we expect to be identified on the tables or maps? Even providing templates so that communities aren't sort of guessing at how they need to structure information that responds to the minimum requirements. As long as your plan addresses the items that are minimum requirements, then from the Met Council standpoint, we will find that your plan is approved. However, a lot of communities may decide to do more in their plan because the comprehensive plan isn't just for us, it's primarily for you as a community. And so you want a document that reflects your priorities and values looking ahead for the next 20 or 30 years, and a document that as policymakers, as elected officials, you can take that plan and look at it and make some strategic decisions for your community. So it's, we have some basics to meet, but you really need to think about how will it be a good living document for you as a city.
And then a follow-up with that, you mentioned transit. Curious about the, dollar rides. I'm curious to know what in your, I guess the budgeting's have been done now, but I'm curious to know what the cost is that you have right now for each of those rides. I imagine an airport a ride from here to the airport is probably more than $1.
Yeah, that's $1 ride for seniors. It's a little bit more than that for non-seniors. But yeah, we can get that information to you. Yep, you're right. It doesn't cost.
My concern is if I can see why it's successful, right? For $1 for a ride to the airport, and you're talking about growing it, and I'm just curious how you plan to sustain that.
Yeah, it is popular. We have tens of millions of people that utilize transit each year for ridership, and that's tens of millions of cars that are not using our roadways, and we're not paying for that. We do look at it, what the cost per ride for everybody is, and happy to provide that info. Are you wondering about just Metro Micro or
I guess
regular routes or like all
I guess
of them?
just Metro Micro. I mean, the one you just brought up, since the other ones each one's different, right? I know that rapid transit between here and the suburbs like Woodbury and whatnot is a different situation. But just looking at this, it's always when you have successful programs and they're growing, it's always something that raises a flag with my back of my head of like, okay, what do the economics of this look like, and can we sustain that? So it's more so that question.
Happy to get that info.
If I could just follow up on that, my understanding, and I could be wrong about this, so please correct me, is that the fare structure with the Metro Micro largely parallels and fits in with the fare structure for the rest of the transit system.
Correct.
So a non-senior user is paying generally what everybody else would pay to
$2.
get from their home to
right.
wherever they're going, whether that connects with further into the system or just to the destination within the zone. It's going to be the same fare structure as the general system, as I understand it.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Did you have a follow-up? Okay. Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes, thank you for being here tonight. I wanted to circle back about the water. And you'd mentioned about like the chlorine issue, and I've been hearing a lot about that in a number of the organizations I represent Roseville in. And I was wondering if you have any funding grants or programs to prevent chloride from getting in, because I think we know once salt or chlorine gets into the water, it's very difficult to get it out. And so it seems like we'd want to spend some time on figuring out how to prevent that to start with, or alternatives, or, because I know one program, which is a small program, where residents can get a free bag of chicken grit to put down instead of sand. They can go to the hardware store starting, I think, Wednesday, actually, I think is where that program starts. And, so and there's everything from, what programs can we push out to residents, but then also what can cities do, and even the larger organizations around this chloride issue? Because it seems, I know when we look at wastewater, it's a lot about taking stuff out once it's there, but it seems like trying to prevent might be a better place to do some of that.
100%. So just off the top of my head, I'm not aware of any grants. I suspect that there are. I suspect that they are through Minnesota Pollution Control agencies.
I was thinking more through the Met Council. I
Yeah,
didn't
there
know.
isn't any, not that I'm aware of, related to that. I'm glad you're a Green Step city. I know, and I'm glad and I'm very aware that the city takes sustainability very seriously. The two main sources of chlorine are salting roads, right? So making sure that your crew know about smart salting and go through the smart salting training. And then water softening. And you're part of St. Paul Water? Yep, like Falcon Heights is too.
Yep.
So that's less of an issue for Roseville, but it is a significant source of chlorine for
I think
chloride
people
for-
don't realize that either.
I know, I know. And it's like, so you're thinking, we're talking about comprehensive planning and planning for the future. Like, we benefit by partnerships with St. Paul Water, and we benefit for those that came before us that planned for this type of partnership in this one specific way, and I'm sure in a million other ways, right? But I use chicken grit myself, and I can tell you, again, for the millions of folks that are watching out there, it works.
We're going to change the marketplace for chicken grit.
I also, yes, exactly. That was not on my bingo card for talking about chicken grit.
Was on mine.
I also have chickens too for it, so it's kind of a twofer for me. My chickens use it, and I use it for make sure I don't slip. So there you go.
Well, just please keep in mind as you guys do your planning, that this preventative piece might be a good place to invest in, so.
Well, certainly, as I think about it, with the assistance for people to do, low flush toilets and things like that from the water flow point of view into the sanitary system, I could see where if there's assistance for people to make sure that their outdoor irrigation water is separated from their softened water that they use in their house
Right.
for those purposes,
Yep.
to the extent that people need to do that, that might be something to look at.
Yeah,
great.
I was just going to jump in quickly to say you're exactly right in this, is that one of the key, our environmental services group, one of their new strategies that they're working on is partnerships, because it's not just those inputs, it's also agricultural inputs from the rest of the state. It's all sorts of different challenges they're running into. And so they're starting to work with other agencies to partner even more on addressing holistically the system of water, as it's in our Imagine 2050 as one water, which is the concept of it's all one thing. It doesn't know where it's going or where it came from. Yeah.
Thank you.
One role that we do play is water testing. So you will find Met Council employees out at many of our lakes, rivers, streams, doing water testing. And we also have, last time I checked, it was over 1,000 residents that participate in a citizen science program. Forgetting the name of it off the top of my head, but we can get folks, that live on McCarran's, for example, or go to Beckett.
I think we do have people. That
Do you?
live there
Yeah,
that
do I?
that as
Do
well as elsewhere.
anybody around here?
Yeah.
To get out there from time to time with like a Secchi. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but a little disc that monitors water clarity, and they can take water samples and send them into the Met Council, and it's a citizen science activity that we really rely on. I mean, the first step on cleaning these water sources is to know that you have a problem in the first place, right? And so the more the city can help in promoting those citizen science activities like this one, the better we would all be off.
Right. I do want to note that we're kind of approaching our original scheduled time, even though we started early on this item. So I want to make sure we're respectful of the time on the agenda. But another comment or question from Councilmember Strawn.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the Metro Micro. It's had a few different names. So going back to the original location in North Minneapolis, continue to lobby for that to be expanded to Northeast. Just get people across the river would be really great. The people who've used it in North Minneapolis have been very appreciative of it, and so I don't know very many people here who have used that, but I do know folks in other neighborhoods where cars are not as reliable. Maybe they don't have a brand new shiny car that they can trust. It helps people get to work, and if they can't get to work, they can't pay for the car that maybe isn't that reliable. So I think it's all part of helping not just people getting a home, but getting a place to live that also makes sure that they can get to work and everything else. And I think if you're not in that ecosphere of where things are also highly dependent upon each other, you maybe forget and lose sight of the fact that many people live really close to the edge, and food and shelter and cars and stuff. And so this takes one piece out of it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think one of the greatest challenges with transit in general is that that last mile, right? Even to get to the regular route can be a challenge for folks. Metro Micro, these are handicapped accessible vehicles, and so you're right, we expanded. North Minneapolis was the first, maybe a year and a half ago, maybe close to 2 years ago now. Roseville was the second, along with Woodbury, and we've expanded to Blaine with plans to expand in Bloomington and 4 or 5 other routes across the region. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I'm also very excited about the G line. Yes, coming to Roseville. Here, bus rapid transit. Roseville, the location of our first bus rapid transit, the A line, which has been super popular. The Rosedale is our, I think I'm right on this, second highest transit center, right behind the Mall of America. And the A line is a big part of that. And excited about the G line with Rice, starting construction, I think the latter part of 2026 into 2027. And that'll go from Little Canada down Rice to downtown St. Paul, intersecting, by the way, with lots of routes along the way, and the Green Line, and then moving on down Robert Street towards South St. Paul. So that'll be another great addition. I'm sure will be well used in Roseville.
All right. Well, thank you again for being here this evening and all the work you do on behalf of the district that you represent at the Met Council.
My
And
pleasure.
so-
And I think my business card is in the packet,
is, yeah.
as is the new G line route. Some information about that. So
Great.
check it out. And yeah, my card's in there. So anything big or small, you know. I was working. We get together every once in a while, quarterly, with Roseville schools. They bring in some of the local elected officials, and at one of the meetings there not too long ago, a staff member for the schools was like, "Hey, why can't we have the bus stop be here, closer to the school, as opposed to where it is right now, there?" And I'm like, I don't know why it's there instead of here. Why don't we look into it? Put in a phone call? Well, sure, we can move it a little bit closer to the school. And so if there's anything like that that is on your mind related to the Met Council, all you can do is ask.
All right. Well, thank you again.
All right.
And
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't have as challenging a questions for Merit as at LUAC meetings, but
You can get me later.
all right. I'll make up for it.
Nobody
at the next one.
drank from that, right? Yeah.
It's
Just
still there.
don't drink.
Looks pretty full.
All right.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say.
That
you
brings
didn't
us
drink.
then to our next business item, item 7B, which is to hold a public hearing to consider liquor license renewals for 2026. I almost said 2020 because I didn't have my glasses on. 2026. And we have our Assistant City Manager, Rebecca Olson, with us to bring this item before us this evening. Ms.
Thank
Olson.
you, Mayor, council members. As the mayor indicated, tonight you're being asked to hold a public hearing to consider approving the renewals for the liquor license. These are applications that we've received. We will probably have one more set of liquor license that will be coming before you in December as well. These are outlined in your packet as attachment 1. They include our off-sale and on-sale intoxicating liquor licenses, non-intoxicating. I'm not going to go through all the list. It is there, but we have several of them. The other attachment in your packet also indicates which establishments have had any liquor compliance failures over the past 5 years. Council does have some discretion to factor in these compliance failures when considering to renew licenses. So before you are these liquor licenses seeking application. Staff is recommending approval of these pending any outstanding application materials and payments. I will pause right now and see if you have any questions on this one.
All right, and I did want to double check. So we had some discussion at our previous discussion about compliance failures about a particular establishment. We wanted to take a closer look at that. Is that on the list of being considered this evening?
So, Mayor, thank you for asking that question. I was going to bring that up, wanting to know if you wanted to pass these or consider these first. But yes, you are correct. Red Lobster was the liquor license that was under consideration. That is not included in these renewals as of right now. Wanted to get feedback from council, maybe let the city attorney outline options, what your options are to consider. And then we could bring it back on when we bring the other ones back, I believe December 8th.
All right, thank you, Ms. Olson. And I think perhaps that part of the discussion we'll take up after we potentially take action on the applications we have in the packet this evening. Just wanted to kind of clarify that procedural step. Councilmember Strong.
I had a quick question on the list of properties under 2023. One of the establishment has an asterisk by it and an undetectable thing after. Do you know what it refers to?
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it might just be an errant note. I
Floater.
don't think there was anything
Okay,
intentional
thank you.
about that.
I should have asked in advance, sorry.
And that's on the list of establishments?
Correct, under MGM Larpenteur.
2023.
Attachment 2.
Right, I was just looking to see, I didn't see.
Page 30.
Oh, there is an, okay, I see what you're saying, yeah.
I
So
don't
I
know.
guess the conclusion is it was a violation in that year, and then some other information is truncated off of there.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a public hearing, and we want to make sure we provide an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the large number of licenses we've got before us this evening for renewal this year. Certainly, anybody can speak to any particular one of those or to the idea in general, but we do want to provide an opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone here to speak to these license renewals, liquor license renewals for the city of Roseville for 2026? It does not appear to be the case. Then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move to council consideration of these license renewal applications. And I'll turn it over to the council. What is the desire of the council in the form of some sort of motion?
I would move to approve all the establishments on this list.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder to approve the applications for renewals on the list provided in the packet information. Seconded by Councilmember Bauer. Discussion on the motion. As the maker of the motion, Councilmember Schroeder.
It's just nice to see that we have so many businesses in Roseville, and I know it can be a struggle to, get the right amount of employees and get them, but it's important that they all get trained, and I know we harp on that every time, but it is important that we keep saying that, so.
All right, and as the seconder, Councilmember Bauer.
Yeah, I would just follow up with that. Seeing this great list and so many of them, and just thinking about the number of violations that we have, I think Roseville, business community and restaurant community have been doing very well in their compliance and in their training. So it's nice to see.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Those renewals are approved. And I will turn over to our attorney to see if there's any information for us to take up this evening in relation, or talk about this evening in relation to the Red Lobster case.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. When we considered the last compliance violation by the Red Lobster, you had mentioned that maybe you would consider taking additional action at the time of renewal. License renewal or denying an application for a license renewal is tantamount to a license revocation. And so we look to the liquor licensing statute, which requires that the council follow the procedures of the Administrative Procedures Act and Minnesota law when taking that kind of an action. Without getting too into the weeds, it's a standard notice and an opportunity to be heard, but with some stricter requirements. There has to be a reasonable opportunity to be heard, notice of what you're being charged with, and then there are some hearing requirements as well. So to walk you through it, you would, if the council wanted to consider non-renewal, then staff should send a letter to the Red Lobster and give them an opportunity to request a contested hearing on that issue. We would provide them with all of the reports or any sort of information that we would put in front of the council to make that consideration. They would be able to present witnesses, present any evidence or testimony of their own. To the extent that the city would provide witnesses, they would have an opportunity to cross-examine those individuals, and then, of course, make arguments to the council about what penalty, if any, is appropriate. The council's decision is required to be in writing and have some findings. So we wouldn't be able to get it done in one hearing. We would have the council advise us, the staff would take it back, and staff and I would write up proposed findings for the council, and that's how the decision would ultimately be made. So it's the rough outline of the procedures that would be required. There is another option, which is to refer the matter to a hearing officer to do that work and not hold the hearing in front of the council. And then what you would do is we would do all the same stuff in front of a hearing officer who would then submit a report to the council for its consideration.
All right, thank you for that information. So really, the question before us, I guess, as a council is, do we want to take into account the history of compliance check violations for this particular establishment in the consideration of their renewal for 2026, which has been applied for, as I understand it? And if so, then what sort of procedure would we like to undertake? And so I think that's the question for the council to consider this evening. Councilmember Shorter.
So, remind me, what does our regulations say, because what, they had 3 at this point?
Right, so their fourth within a 3-year period would, I believe,
Right,
the mandatory minimum or the presumptive penalty would be a
right,
revocation.
but they've had 3.
they've had 3 within
And so,
and it's a rolling 36-month
right,
period.
and so what does our,
they've, I'm sorry to interrupt, they had 4 and 38 months, so
Okay.
slightly more than 3.
so the one rolled off?
Yeah.
Yep, so according to our regulations, if you have 3, it's $2,000 and 15 days?
15-day suspension.
Okay, and so then we would have to have findings on why we deviate from what we have.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thoughts from the council? Or I don't know if we're prepared to come to a conclusion this evening, but I think in the absence of direction from the council, we do have an application that we do have to act on, so we can't sort of dither on the process here. Sounds like perhaps we will go through the normal process then?
I'd be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Then we don't direct staff to do anything further, and that application would be brought before the council for normal consideration. All right, thank you, Ms. Olson and our attorney for that helpful discussion. That then brings us to a number of abatements, the first 5 of which are abatements of private hydrants that are in various ways not compliant with requirements. These are fire hydrants on private properties. And we have our Public Works Director, Jesse Freihammer, with us this evening for these items, and the first of which is to consider an abatement of a private hydrant and its noncompliance at 1375 Commerce Street. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Freihammer to bring this item before the council for consideration.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to give a real quick background on kind of the whole process, since we've never really done this since the ordinance was enacted, and then we'll kind of get into each individual case, but they're all pretty much the same. So real quick, back in 2016, we adopted a private hydrant ordinance basically requiring all hydrants to be inspected. It's a lot of cities do this because it's part of fire code, and unless you have a way of doing it, you don't know if they're actually getting inspected or not. So we started doing that. We actually hire a vendor who does the inspections for us, and we pass that cost on to the property owners. But there's about 425 of these hydrants. They're usually located on large apartment buildings or commercial properties, basically where you're far enough away from the city system. You need the fire department requires you to have your own hydrant. So over the past 9 years, we've had about 112 that we've required some sort of at least minor repair on. Most of these have been repaired or fully replaced depending upon the condition. But we do have 5 that have not been have been identified as being inoperable. So these are the 5 that we're bringing to the council tonight for abatement. So the cost to abate these would be roughly about $5,000. Depends if you have to do a full replacement. It could be less in some cases if you just have to replace some parts, plus the abatement fee of $350. So if the abatement is approved, council or the city would hire a vendor to complete the repairs or replace the hydrant, and then the property owners would be invoiced, and if they don't pay that, it would be assessed against the property. So the first property is 1375 Commerce. The details of us notifying are in the packet, but they've been on the list for at least 2 years. So the requested council action would be direct public works staff to abate the above referenced public nuisance violation at 1375 Commerce Street. And I can answer any questions the council may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Freihammer. I guess the first question, just to kick it off, is that you had mentioned it, but I didn't want it to be too lightly treated, is that this is a fire safety issue.
Correct.
A non-functioning hydrant really puts a damper on the, so to speak, on the ability to fight fires at that location or the location served by that hydrant.
Correct, yeah. So the hydrant is 100% out of use, so fire department have to pull from some other nearby hydrant.
Got
so
it.
longer hose, longer time.
Right, right. All right, questions from the council on this particular case? Is there a representative of the property owner here this evening who wishes to speak to this request to have the city perform the abatement of the hydrant at this location? Doesn't appear to be the case. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this particular case this evening? It's seeing no one then, we'll close the opportunity for public comment. And the council request for action is as noted in the materials in the meeting packet, which is to, by motion, direct the public works staff to abate the public nuisance violation at 1375 Commerce Street by hiring a contractor to replace the private hydrant at the property.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Groff to authorize that abatement. of that private hydrant that failed the inspection. Discussion on the motion as the maker of the motion, Councilmember Schroeder.
Mayor, you said exactly right. It's a fire safety issue, and so that's something we definitely cannot wait any longer on.
Right. As the seconder, Councilmember Groff.
This was a good refresher, and I'm glad in 2016 we did make that change, because that would be very unfortunate if the fire department went and hooked up to a fire hydrant and had to move it. It can cost time and money and lives, so appreciate that information.
Other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That abatement is authorized. That brings us then to item 7D, which is the second case this evening. Mr. Freihammer.
A pretty much similar case. This property was had 2 failed inspections over the last 2 years. They were notified as indicated in the packet, so staff would recommend the council direct public works staff to abate the above referenced public nuisance violation at 1960 Twin Lakes Parkway.
All right, thank you, Mr. Freihammer. Are there questions from the council on this particular case? Is there a representative of the property owner here this evening who wishes to speak to this? And is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this case this evening? All right, seeing no one, we have the requested action before us, which is to authorize the abatement of this particular violating private hydrant. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, second by Councilmember Bauer. Discussion on that motion?
No.
All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. The abatement is authorized. That brings us then to the third case, item 7E, which is to consider abatement of a private hydrant at 2597 Cleveland Avenue. Once again, Mr. Freihammer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Similar to the first 2, at 2597, we did inspections for the last 2 years. Same thing, that the hydrant has been out of service, so staff would recommend council direct public works to abate the above referenced public nuisance at 2597 Cleveland Avenue.
All right, thank you, Mr. Freihammer. Questions for staff on this particular item? Hearing none, is there a representative of the property owner here this evening who wishes to speak to this case? All right, seeing no one, is there a member of the public who wishes to speak to this case this evening? All right, we'll close the opportunity for public comment and move to council consideration. We've got the request to authorize the performance of the abatement of that fire hydrant at 2597 Cleveland, private hydrant.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Groff, second by Councilmember Schroeder. Discussion on that motion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That abatement is authorized. Our next case is private hydrant at 1641 County Road B2. Mr. Freihammer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Real similar to the other ones. City did inspections over the last 2 years. This was also found to be failure on one hydrant. I will note on this one, the property owner, I believe it was the property owner, did reach out on this. It's more of an internal discussion of who should be paying for it, the property manager or the owner. But we indicated we're still going to take this up because they've been fighting that for well over 2 months. So I just wanted to make that note on this one. But same case, staff would recommend council direct public works staff to abate the above reference nuisance at 1641 County Road B2.
All right, thank you, Mr. Freihammer. Questions for staff on this one? Councilmember Schroeder.
Yes, I see that the construction year is 1963. How long does a hydrant typically last?
If they're maintained properly, they'll last 7,500 years.
Okay.
But I mean, it really comes down to proper maintenance. If you're maintaining them annually and running it, they'll work. When we started the program, a lot of those hydrants probably hadn't been used or tested since the day they were put in. And if you don't move, operate
Sure.
the stuff, things break. So it's as a testament to how well the program worked, our numbers of inoperable have gone off dramatically, and they're just less issues every year. So, but if you keep maintaining them, they'll work pretty long time.
Thank
I was
you.
just going to say, we've probably got an inventory of fairly old fire hydrants that are owned by the city that have been exercised on an annual basis.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, just to that note, most of the city's hydrants were built in 1965 through 70, so it's still in operable use.
Right, is there a representative of the property owner at 1641 County Road B2? Doesn't appear to be the case. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this particular case this evening? Not seeing anyone, we'll close the opportunity for public comment on this case. and look for a motion from the council.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, second by Councilmember Schroeder, to authorize the abatement of this private hydrant on County Road B2. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed. That passes unanimously. And then our final hydrant case this evening is at 1885 County Road C, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Fryhammer again.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, just like the previous four, same thing. This hydrant has been inspected and been out of service since 24. So staff would once again recommend council direct public works staff to abate the above reference public nuisance at 1885 County Road C.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fryhammer. Are there questions for staff on this? All right, is there a representative of the property owner here this evening on this case? And is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this particular abatement case? All right, seeing no one, we'll close the opportunity for public comment and look for a motion from the council.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Strawn, to authorize that abatement at 1885 County Road C. Discussion on the motion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye opposed. That passes unanimously. That abatement is authorized. Thank you, Mr. Fryhammer. Hopefully that gets us to the end of this process, and it's maintenance from here on out. All right, with that then, we have another abatement action, but this is a nuisance code violation of a different sort. And I'll turn it over to our codes official, David England, to bring this item before the council. Mr.
Thank
England.
you, Mayor, members of council. As described, this is a request to perform an abatement at 1719 Chatsworth.
Could you pull the mic a little closer?
Take a
It says
pic.
don't touch
Yes,
them.
I know,
Yeah.
but.
They are directional, though. That's the problem. It's pointing over here
Yeah, it's
instead of
gotta
at your
point
mouth.
Yes,
Yep, there we
thank
go.
you.
I'll try that one more time. This is a request to perform an abatement at 1719 Chatsworth for public nuisance violations. On September 22nd, staff was notified that there were violations in this entire neighborhood that staff should look at. We did go through the neighborhood. We found this property with an inoperable vehicle and a freezer, a chest freezer in the driveway. Staff did have a conversation with the property owner, the resident on site, and described the violations and gave a time frame of 10 days to correct the violations. We also did secure the freezer that was there on site with tape just to make sure there was no entry. We did not see any compliance after 10 days, so we did send a letter to the property owner and to the resident. And the property owner is listed as of Ramsey County. It's at a different address. We did not see compliance after that, so as is normal procedure, we sent a council notification letter for this hearing tonight on the 28th and I believe the 13th of November. So we sent 2 notifications just to try and get as much contact with the property owner as possible. Today we did drop off the agenda at the property. We taped that on the door to see if we could get some communication from the resident. We did note that the freezer was gone from the property at that time, but the vehicle was still inoperable, still with 2 flat tires and improper licensing on it, on the vehicle. At 5:15 this afternoon, I did receive a call from the resident. She stated that she was in receipt of all of our letters and our notifications. She did state also that the freezer had been removed, which we confirmed. And she then stated she was unable to get the vehicle fixed until probably after Christmas with the tires, but she said she did order tabs for the vehicle. I have not been able to confirm that in any way. So at this point in time, her request, she said she would not be able to attend tonight. I told her I would relay her conversation and her statements about being able to get it fixed after Christmas to council for your decision. But we have not seen much progress with this one, so I'm not sure where this will go. But our request from staff would be to approve the abatement, to remove the vehicle, hiring a contractor to remove the vehicle and send the invoice for the council fee to the property owner.
Great, thank you, Mr. England. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Schroeder.
Yes, I see in the document in front of me that you have in here removal and disposal of items stored outside, $250. Would that be removed? Or is this, and we're just looking at the, I guess, is that removing the vehicle or what is that for?
That 250 would be for the removal of the chest freezer. At the time we wrote this, this document, that it was still on site. So that would come off of your consideration, would be the removal of the outside storage items.
So it would be the 600 minus the 250.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Strawn.
Thank you. In the RCA, it indicates that in the request for action, sorry, it doesn't indicate that there was same or similar violations at this property in 23 and 24, and that this same vehicle in 23 was not displaying current registration. Can you relay the outcome of that particular situation?
At both of those times, it was just the tabs that were the violation for this. I believe this was discovered during the neighborhood enhancement program. At that point, we looked at it as an educational opportunity to provide that to the resident to say, hey, this vehicle is technically considered inoperable and could result in abatement action. We like to do that to kind of forestall any of these type of proceedings in the future.
So technically, they were warned in 23, 24, and these multiple times in 25.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Other questions for staff? All right, is there a representative? I guess you said that the resident is not able to be here. Is there a representative of the property owner here this evening? Does not appear to be the case. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this particular case this evening? All right, we'll close the opportunity for public comment. I did want to check with staff, and these types of code violations, especially if it's a flat tire issue, does the city have connections with resources that potentially could be availed of by the property owner or resident to try to resolve some of these relatively minor mechanical issues as opposed to significant inoperable issues?
I am not aware of any.
Okay.
The resource that we provide generally is to offer what's called a consent to abate, where we'll remove the vehicle in this case, removing the fee that the council proceeding takes on.
All right, and so that you're talking about removing the $350 fee?
That's will stay if it's approved.
Okay.
The fee for the removing of the outside storage and the freezer
Okay.
would come off.
Okay.
So the 350 would stay if it's approved, unless council wishes
Sure.
not to.
And if the vehicle is
Assess it.
abated by towing, essentially, does the owner of the vehicle have to pay then to have it recovered from the impound lot or wherever it is?
Yes, they would have to pay it.
Plus the towing fee, I imagine.
Correct. Yep.
All right. Which could potentially cost more than a couple of tires.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's my concern here is that this, sometimes people have challenges with resources and things like that. And I just want to pause during the process of our enforcement to make sure that we're not sort of, making situations worse for people. I know for instance, in our police department, we have the program, the Lights On program, where people can receive, essentially vouchers or coupons for getting, what am I trying to say, like signal lights repaired or those types of things on their vehicles. So that's why I asked the question about resources here. I know if people have, for instance, old tires on their property that are, a mosquito hazard, there's a program with Met Council to be able to deal with those. And I know sometimes when we've had the right people in the audience, and there's been an issue with junk and debris in a yard, people have volunteered to help out with it. So I just want to make sure we're thinking about, as we look at these enforcement cases, that what we're doing isn't sort of making a situation worse for somebody, while at the same time making sure that we do our enforcement. And so that's why I just wanted to bring that up, Mr. England.
And I agree with that. That would be wonderful if we could give those resources to people. It would also help staff if we would get contact potentially at the first notice of this, if they would wish resources. That would give us time then in our process to do that. We're just here now because we've exhausted our efforts.
Right, and that's the unfortunate thing about our process is oftentimes the threat of a council meeting is what sort of prompts some movement, and it's not the first time that's been the case, certainly, as we've been through this. Councilmember Strawn.
It looks like there's a matching garage in the distance. Is that a possibility that this vehicle could go into that garage?
That would abate it.
Absolutely. It is a two-car garage that is on site. I do know there is a swimming pool in between the vehicle and the garage, so that would have to be moved in some way to facilitate the vehicle going in. And in our notices, we have said that the vehicle just needs to be repaired or removed from the property or placed inside storage. And we just haven't had any communication that they were willing to do that.
Right. Council action on this particular case?
Just a point of clarification, we have in these past voted on these abatements, but given a deferred date, I believe.
We have done that. We don't always do it, but we do sometimes do it.
Didn't we do that on this one already?
This property owner was here last month or within the last couple months on another case on another.
Oh, it's
property.
another case. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Getting confused.
Council action, motion.
Just a further question about this pool. Does this pool currently have water in it?
It does.
And does it meet,
It is under the height limit that requires any action by staff.
okay. It seemed like it was really close, given that it's taller than the freezer. Can you tell us if the prior abatement issue with the other property of the same owner has been resolved?
It has. They did bring that vehicle into compliance. They did also remove the refrigerator that was in that property. That was removed. I believe that was removed actually before the council hearing. But the vehicle appears operable. And with this vehicle, I'm not sure that just the tires are the only issue with this vehicle. I was not given that information today. But yes, the other property has come into compliance.
Councilmember McGraw?
So the question, if this is information that was related to you, is they need until after the first of the year. That's over a month away.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Shorter?
Yeah, this one, if, once we approve this, when would you actually pick up the vehicle, have it done? Would it be like tomorrow or something?
Potentially. I mean, it's not a lengthy process once we get approval from council to do that. We would work as you approve it.
So I guess what I would do, I would move to approve this, but move the date out, since it's Thanksgiving week. It might be a little difficult to, just to the spirit of the holiday, I guess, give them a little extra time. So maybe,
Something 2 weeks or something?
Yes, exactly, from today, 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, I was thinking 10 days.
Yeah.
What's the date on that? So we have the
Yeah, give us a
Well,
date.
Today, 2 weeks from today would the first.
No, a week from today is the
Oh,
first.
the first one?
2 weeks from today would be the 8th. Right.
Oh, magic tax day.
Yeah, 10 days would be fine, too.
Yeah,
10
the
business
the
days,
5th,
10
essentially.
biz, yeah, there you
the
go.
5th would be, are you looking at 10 business days, would be later than that with
Because
the
of the
holiday.
All right, just give 2 weeks, forget the business part of it.
December 8th.
December 8th. We'll give
Dates
until
always work.
So they
for
can
these
move
things.
that vehicle wherever that it complies,
yeah.
as long as it's not sitting there.
Yeah,
And not in compliance.
And if by the 8th it is still there, we would abate.
yep.
I could motion to approve that.
All right, is there a second to Councilmember Schroeder's motion?
Second.
That's what we're looking for. All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Strawn to authorize the abatement if it's not abated by the property owner or resident by the 8th. Discussion of December. Yes, thank you. 2025. Discussion on the motion is the maker of the motion, Councilmember Schroeder. Nothing? All right. Is the seconder Councilmember Strawn? Other discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That abatement is authorized, stayed until the 8th. And I would
And
like
that's the
us...
350. It would be.
Right,
the
it's just
number
for the
would be
vehicle,
changed.
correct, yes. I would just like to suggest that the city take a look at maybe there's faith communities, or
Yep.
maybe there's,
Garage.
the shop class at
Service,
the
yeah.
auto shop class at the school, or somebody that might be willing to look at helping out with that. I don't know that we need to go out and actively solicit, but,
Yeah.
maybe we need to try to think about some things, so just putting that out there for everybody, not specifically for Mr. England.
Add that to his
Right,
job
right,
description.
right. All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
That then brings us to another public hearing. We have a public hearing this evening on a request to approve a minor plat, and we've got our senior planner, Brian Lloyd, with us this evening to bring this item before the council. It's been a little while since we've had a minor plat before the city council, so we haven't had the pleasure of seeing Mr. Lloyd. Welcome back, and look forward to this presentation this evening.
I see that our ceiling camera's not on, but we don't really need it this evening. The proposal is to plat the property there at 1900 to 1910 County Road D, where Presbyterian Homes has their home care facility. And the result of the plat would be dedicating some right-of-way along County Road D, making a relatively small lot for the existing facility there, and reserving the rest in what's known as an outlot, which essentially just holds it as an undevelopable parcel until such time in the future as it is replatted or designated as a developable lot instead of an outlot. It's a much simpler plat application than many that come to the city council because there isn't development being proposed. We don't have stormwater plans to review. We don't have a tree preservation plan. Parks and Recreation Commission review for dedication of land or cash in lieu of land is something that would happen, again, at platting the outlot for actual future development rather than at this time. So all we really had to do was look at that proposed Lot 1 to make sure that it conforms to building setback requirements, particularly along the south, and lot coverage and that sort of thing. And it looks like that lot will be just fine as it's proposed. I feel like I'm leaving something out aside from just recommending that. Oh, I know what I was leaving out. I have talked to a couple of members of the public who called to ask for some insight about what the public notice meant. It just said that there's a proposal to plat this property. Usually that goes along with some future development. In this case, not only does it not connect to immediate future development, but it constrains future development until some, public action again in the future. So they were just looking for information about what that meant and didn't have any particular concerns about the plat proposal after hearing about that. And so then I would mention that we do recommend approval of the plat as it's proposed, and I can take any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Questions from the council for staff on this proposal? Councilmember Groff.
Not so much a question, but so what you're saying is that in the future, if this were to be some proposal came forth, we would do the tree preservation, we'd do all the other things that we do
Certainly.
at that time, because that would be the appropriate time to do that.
Correct.
Other questions for staff? Councilmember Strawn.
I'm not as familiar with these type of lots and this outlot concept, but it looks like, so that Arthur Street used to go down and go into that circle, is that correct?
I think that was a private driveway.
I don't know the nature of the kind of right-of-way that exists there between Arthur Street and Brenner. There was certainly a driveway, yes, kind of that reached into the middle of the parcel. This property has been a nursing care facility for quite some time, and the previous facility, which doesn't show on this aerial photo, was demolished. I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, prior to the construction of the new facility, or actually just after the construction of the new facility on the north side of the site there.
So obviously we don't know if and when someone, I would assume at some point someone would be interested in developing this property. That's not neither here nor there at this point because there's no specific project being proposed or?
Simply put, that's true. I believe that Presbyterian Homes has plans for future phases of this care facility, which they could certainly develop, in the land that remains there once it's replatted as a developable lot as opposed to the outlot. But they don't have to be the ones to develop that property. It doesn't have to be more, the assisted living facility kind of care. It could be any land use that is allowed, that's permitted in the high-density district that regulates the property.
What advantage is there to them to have it separated so they could sell it, or what? I'm not quite sure I understand what the advantage would be at this point for that division.
I presume it's a lower tax rate on land that is in an outlot which can't be developed by its nature, rather than holding it as, you know, a separate lot that could be developed, or more of this, you know, one parcel that also could be further developed. So I think it's just a cost-saving measure for, you know, what might be years before they build future phases.
Right, other questions? It does look like there is an easement on that eastern edge of the property, the Arthur Street sort of extension for the pathway that's there, as well as utilities, and I'm presuming that the minor plat preserves that easement that extends south on the eastern edge of the property.
That's right. We haven't reviewed any proposed vacations of easements or eliminations like that.
All right, okay. Because I think that's access, if I'm not mistaken, to the open space to the south there. All right. If there are no further questions from the council, is there a representative of the applicant this evening who wishes to say anything in support of their case, or just stand for questions? Good evening. We just ask that you introduce yourself before you make your comments, and please feel free to have a seat.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name's Pamela Bells. I work for Senior Housing Partners, which is the development and construction arm of Presbyterian Homes. I built the Langton Shores Care Center that is there currently, and then participated in the removal of the existing care center that was there previously, to which has that circular driveway that you were referring to, Councilmember Strahan. I'm just here for questions, but as a little bit of background, this parcel, we built the Langton Shores Care Center and opened it in February of 2020, which is 2 weeks before the shutdown. And we did have plans to roll right into a phase 2 that would attach to this building. At the time, the state was interested in leasing the old care center that we just moved out of in case they needed it for COVID overflow for any reason. So they leased that property for a couple of years, which then made any plan that we had not feasible to move forward with. So that property has just kind of been shelved a little bit. When the state was done with the building, we did take it down just to remove kind of the eyesore and the liability that goes with that. We left that parking, the driveway and kind of parking turnaround in place because it provides a nice solid surface for whether it's us or someone else that develops it in the future. It's a nice solid surface for construction parking or landing materials and that sort of thing. So there wasn't any reason to remove it. We did put in the stormwater pond that was required. Would have been required with phase 2, but phase 1 needs it. So we put that in over the summer and have completed that and stabilized and added some new sidewalks for the residents. Since that was going to be built with phase 2, we went ahead and put those in. Our request to do this minor subdivision is purely a flexibility kind of move. We typically would have a skilled nursing facility on its own parcel. This was a combined parcel because we were going to add on to it. Now that I don't know what will become of the property, it makes more sense for our portfolio to align and just have it on its own. So that's the reason behind the request.
All right, thank you for that information. Are there questions for the applicant? All right, thank you for being here this evening, and that's helpful information. All right, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this proposal this evening? If that's the case, feel free to have a seat at one of the microphones, and while you're coming up, I'll just note that for public testimony, we do have a 2-minute time limit 3-minute time limit per statement. Sorry about that. I almost shortchanged you, which I try to enforce generously but gently. And we would ask that you start your comments with your name and street or address for the record, address comments or questions to the council. If we need to get information to answer a question, we'll be happy to do that once anyone else who wishes to speak has asked their question or made their comments. And then we do allow one opportunity per agenda item for folks. So just to give you some of the rules of the road, feel free to introduce yourself and make your comments.
Great. This is very exciting. My first time here. My name is Emily Ruggles Johnson. I know Matt. My name is spelled EMILYRUGGLES space Johnson, JOHNSON. I live at 3060 Arthur Street. It is the corner of Arthur and Brenner. I am right across the street from this situation. And it has been a situation, as Pam mentioned. Thank you for all the emails to our neighborhood, Pam, with questions. It's been a situation for us since 2020. February 2020 was when it was built. In February 2020, our house was broken into, construction, lots of stuff, wedding rings gone, all sorts of stuff. I'm gonna keep it to 2 minutes, so I won't go further into that. But it's been, it has been an eyesore. It's been fenced. It's been there because everything was stalled. I celebrated when the fence came down, and now it's a nice looking, clean area, which I really appreciate. Finally, a couple of questions I have. Number one, who owns the plat? Is it still Presbyterian Homes? That's my first question. Do I ask all my questions? And
Go ahead, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The second question I think I answered when this came up. So agenda, like information for my neighbors to bring back is online. Is that correct?
That is correct,
Okay.
yes, and it remains there after this meeting.
Sounds good. I got the answer about what the purpose of replatting is, I think, from people that have spoken already. What does it mean for who mows the property? Like, is it going to be maintained? Because we have experienced all sorts of pests through this process. We've had to look at piles of trash for years. When the fence came down, most of the trash was removed, which was great. Coyotes, rabbit poop everywhere now. I mean, we love rabbits. We love nature in our neighborhood. But it's been a little confusing. Are we growing beautiful? I do prairie in my yard. We're stewards of the environment in our neighborhood. Are we doing prairie there with long grasses, or are we mowing? It's confusing. It's been very willy-nilly, it seems like, watching it and just wondering what's going to happen. So I'm just curious who owns it, who maintains it in this state. I think that's it. Leslie Knope is my hero, and so I'm from Parks and Recs. I'm excited to be here at City Council, and my husband is not going to believe it if I've kept it to 2 or 3 minutes because he's at home watching me, and yay, I'm done.
You're at 2:49.
See?
Well done. Well done.
Nailed
Win the
it.
prize.
All right. Thank you so much. And feel free to now have a seat back
Sounds
in the
good.
audience.
Thank you.
And we'll provide an opportunity for anybody else who may wish to speak on this item. Is there anyone else from the public? Feel free to come on up. Once again, just introduce yourself and address your comments or questions to the council.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome.
Council members. It's also my first time. Mr. Lloyd, you replied to my email. Thank you very much for that. My name's Jeff Howison. I live, that's Howison. I live on the other side of the property, the west side there on Evelyn Street, directly adjacent to the to the property here. I was just here to get information. I figured I'd speak up. I'll keep it very brief, but I also can echo what was just said about just kind of trash, and it's not really exactly clear what was going on. So I would just like to thank you for articulating some of the concerns that we've also had about just the general state and what is to become of it. I do appreciate that it's their land, and that they're going to do sort of what they want with it. But I was just wondering also about the potential, what may go there eventually. Is it? I heard high density sort of parcel. I would imagine it would be a continuation of the nursing facility that's already there. But in any event, I would also like to say thank you for the notification that we got in the mail I appreciated that. We don't get the emails, I think, that you receive. So it's the first that I've heard of the process. So thanks for the opportunity to sort of comment and to ask questions, but also just a concerned resident, echoing sort of what was already said. And thank you also, Mr. Lloyd, for your time, for keeping us informed. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments this evening. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this item this evening? All right, we'll close the opportunity for public comment. We do have a couple of questions to answer there, and I may have heard it in the information from the representative of the property owner, but I may have to have you come back up and clarify the ownership question, if you don't mind. Thank you, Ms. Bells.
Sure. So the property would remain with PHS, with Presbyterian Homes. Ownership does not change. And we are the ones that would continue to be responsible for maintaining it. It has been seeded. It was overseeded again because of the dry. And we had a little bit of too much rain and a little bit of not enough, so it was overseeded again, and hopefully it'll take this spring. And it is, it's our responsibility to maintain that.
Just a suggestion, not a requirement, but it may make sense to at least maybe get some contact information to a couple of the neighbors about, who they can reach out to at Pres Homes about maintenance concerns or questions. So just putting that out there for you.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you. Are there other questions or feedback? I do have other answers to other questions that we need to provide, but Councilmember Strawn?
I just had a question about when you mentioned the ownership, and I know that Pres Homes is a nonprofit, but the changes in the senior care sphere is different. That skilled nursing doesn't tend to be your most profitable anchor in your portfolio of homes. So my guess is that you would be going to something more like other assisted or independent living to offset the costs associated with the reimbursement rates and everything changing and minimum wages with the state of Minnesota and everything else. So I'm curious to know why going with what an outlot would benefit. It's just to make it more cost effective to keep this large piece of property, or is the goal to sell it off to someone else for the profit to let them develop? Or I guess I just trying to figure out for the neighbors as well what the goals are, or there's got to be some type of long-term plan on what's going to happen with this spot, based on it kind of having sporadic attention.
Councilmember Strahan, I appreciate the question. The LinkedIn Shores Care Center is it's a long-term care center, and you're right, it's a loss leader. They always are. But it's a service that is part of our mission, so we still provide that. We do need the rest of our portfolio to grow to be able to offset those losses. So you're correct on that assumption. The care centers are a little bit of a different tax animal, so and their use is a little different. Their regulations are different. This property also had a small sliver of ownership with a hospital entity, which is not the case should we build housing on the rest of it. So just kind of for those reasons, it's helpful to have the care center on its own tax ID number. And then the other parcel, since we don't have any plans for that and we don't know what's going to happen with it, just having it as an outlet with the flexibility to do whatever development makes sense on it in the future is helpful. We don't have any plans for it at this point. I would love to be building something over there, but we don't have any plans to do anything right now.
Just one additional question. What is what could the neighbors expect, either of the property in visibility or in use? Is it a place that they could use as a green space if it is overseeded and actually usable? Or is it a privately held space that's not available to anyone near them? Or I guess it would be helpful for the neighborhood to kind of understand what they, how they can see this space that's in their neighborhood.
Sure. So now that it's all been seeded and, like they said, the fencing is down, and we can do a better job of maintaining that. Part of it is in grasses that would be mowed and maintained, and a lot of it is in prairie seed that we overseeded with additional wildflower. That maintenance requirements for it, or what the landscaper has said is, in the spring, when it grows to 6 inches, you mow it, because that will kill the weeds that grow faster than the wildflowers. And if you mow it at 6 inches, it kills the weeds, and then the wildflowers can start to come up. And same thing in the fall. You kind of knock it down and then do the same thing in the spring. And that should encourage the wildflowers and not the weeds. So we'll follow that protocol and then reach out to the landscaper if there's any questions on what can we do to improve that. We did reinstall some of the trails, walking trails that had been there previously. There's a little used to be a round pool with a sculpture in the middle of it. That's now been made into a planter bed, and there's still a trail that goes around. And I know there are some residents there that whose family or staff push them in their wheelchairs around that and back, and they really enjoy that. And we'll continue to use that as a green space for the eyes and for the trails. Typically, I have not discussed this up the food chain in our office, but typically, like at Johanna Shores, the public is welcome to walk on our sidewalks and our property, and walk like out to the peninsula at Johanna Shores. We're pretty open to that, as long as they don't leave behind litter or dog poop or that kind of thing. I would guess that's our same thing here. If they want to walk over and go for a walk down by the pond or over by the park, I don't know why we would ever object to that. I would probably call the site after this meeting and say, we did say if people want to walk over there, that's okay, and just make sure that they're aware and they don't think we have an issue, only because we did have a homeless encampment issue there on the south part of the property previously. So we're just kind of keeping an eye on who comes and who goes on the property.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, Anna, we had a couple other questions, which I don't know that it's your purview to answer necessarily. And I would just note also that sometimes having more public use of a site does sort of discourage the homeless encampments sometimes. Obviously, we have them show up in our parks as well, so which are theoretically more used. And certainly, there's no condition of approval of this particular minor plat for that public availability. That is strictly just a private decision between property owner and what they want to do. So I just wanted to make that clear. We're not making that a requirement of our approval. And so we talked a little bit about ownership maintenance. Future use, I believe the entire site, Mr. Lloyd, is zoned or guided for multifamily. So that would generally be the type of use that could be built there, would be, anything that is several units together in a fairly tight density for living purposes. The only way that could be changed is if somebody came forward with a proposal to rezone and re-guide the property for another type of use. And that would have to go through a process before the City Council and probably the Planning Commission, and would require mailed notice. And actually, if it's a rezoning process, I believe there would also be, at the beginning of the process, a public open house before an application to the city for that was considered complete. And so that's kind of an early touch with neighbors and that type of change. If somebody came in with just a plan to meet the zoning, they would still have to come before the council and or the Planning Commission, depending on the lots and quantity and all that sort of thing, for changing that outlot to a usable, developable lot. And so that would be part of the process, and I believe that would still have some of the same types of notifications, possibly not the open house, but I'm not sure, so I'm not going to commit myself to that right now. The other thing is I wanted to mention is that as far as maintenance of properties, proper mowing and upkeep and things like that, certainly we encourage private property owners to let neighbors know if they're willing to do so, who to contact in those sorts of cases. The city's enforcement is a complaint-based enforcement process. And so certainly, actually, Mr. Englund, who was here earlier on the other case, he and his staff are the folks that would be the appropriate people to contact in the Community Development Department under the nuisance code inspection and enforcement. And so those are the folks that the city that could help out with that. And we do have things like if there's a need to expedite a particular abatement, if it's long grass or something like that, the city can actually get it mowed and then bill it back to the property owner if it's a case that requires that. And we've got criteria, which I won't go to any more of that, but anyway, just to give the neighbors a flavor of that. Is so I guess what we're saying is that a lot of times if we don't see something through our periodic neighborhood inspection program, the best bet is to just call the city and we can help determine if it is a violation and go take a look at it. All right, I believe that gets to the questions, to the answers, or the answers to the questions. And I have to say, I am today years old, and all the time I've been doing this, knowing that an outlot actually precludes future development. I never knew that. So this is news to me, and you learn something every day. With that, we've got the request before us. Does council have any more questions, or is the council ready to entertain a motion in relation to this request?
I would move that we would approve the proposed outlots plat.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Groff to approve the minor plat as presented this evening. Discussion on the motion. As the maker of the motion, Councilmember Schroeder.
Just thank you for being here, everyone, with your comments. It always helps the council when we have people we can have questions and then answers, so thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah, those were all very good clarifications, and I appreciate you being here to represent Presbyterian Homes because that helps us a lot too. And I think the communication is good between the neighbors and the entity because that kind of clarifies some things. Sometimes when there's not a conversation, it seems like something bad is happening, and it's really not. It's just communication needs to be done.
All right, and we should make a plug for signing up for the email notifications from the Community Development Department. They're really fun and entertaining, and if you like coming to these meetings, you can go to even more meetings on the Planning Commission if you'd like. So echo the appreciation of other council members have expressed. Other comments on the motion this evening? All right, we've got the motion before us once again to approve that minor plat as presented. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? That passes unanimously, and that is approved. Again, thanks to everyone for being here this evening and sitting through the rest of all of our mundane business to get here. That then brings us, speaking of exciting business, you may want to stick around for this one. We've got a discussion about considering to adopt ordinances relating the implementation of gas and electric franchises in the city.
8 o'clock.
Did we want to take a break? Council want to take their 8 o'clock break? All right, we'll go ahead and do that. We'll do about a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Good to stand up.
Yep.
Move.
8. Oh.
Just like to stand.
Oof.
It really hurts.
All right, we're back from a short break here, and we'll be taking up our last business item this evening, item 7J, which is to consider adopting ordinance, as I was beginning to say before the break, to implement gas and electric franchises in the city of Roseville, and also to consider ordinances that would establish fees associated with those franchises. So there's sort of two actions to be discussed. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to our city manager, Pat Trudgeon, to bring this item before the city council for our consideration, just noting that this is, I think, at least the third time that
Yes,
this has been
yes.
before the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. As you mentioned, we've already talked about this a couple times. This is, I believe, the third time. We last spoke about this at our last meeting. And just as a way of some brief background, as you know, under state law, cities are allowed to enter into franchise agreements with utility companies. In our case, that would be Excel. We previously did have a franchise ordinance in place for 20 years, which expired in 2018, and both the city and Excel at this point would like to adopt another franchise ordinance for another term of 20 years. As far as the actual ordinances, there are two ordinances, electric and gas franchise ordinance. Both would grant a 20-year franchise to Excel to construct, operate, repair, and maintain its electric and gas facilities. It does very closely follow model ordinances that have been around for many decades here and very, very similar to the previous ordinance as well. One thing I do want to call out, and I mentioned this last time, is that if we were to implement franchise fees, which we are allowed to do under the franchise ordinance, Excel will no longer be required to pay permit fees, but would still be required to pull a permit. That average is about $50,000 annually. It goes up and down depending on the amount of work that they need to do. And I would propose that we would reimburse the engineering services fund, which is where the permit fees go into, by franchise fees if we were to adopt them to cover those lost costs. That only comes into effect, that waiving of permit fees, if we adopt franchise fees. If we never adopt them, they would still need to pay the permit fees. As part of our ordinance, the city can institute franchise fees, as I just talked about, for the use of the right-of-way, which are charged to customers. Now, the fees are charged to all customers, and that includes tax-exempt properties. From our estimation, there's about 84 properties that would pay these franchise fees that don't pay taxes and generate about $175,000. The mostly larger users, non-residential users. As outlined in the staff report, 12 of the 15 Ramsey County cities have franchise fees, and over 100, probably many more than that, have franchise fees in place in the state. I mention that not to saying we should do it because everybody else is doing it. Instead, it just highlights that franchise fees are widely accepted as a tool that cities rely on to support their operational capital needs. As we look at double-digit levy increases, as you are well aware, franchise fees represent a practical and commonly used option for us to consider as we look at the tax levy increase. So as far as the actual proposed franchise fees, we are looking, and this is information that you have seen before, for the residential users, a $3 per month fee for electric, and $3 for gas, and different rates for commercial and industrial depending on certain categories they fall into. All told, that would raise about $2.4 million on an annual basis, and an ongoing annual basis. And for residents, I would note that the cost is $72 for the whole year for that. That's kind of a fixed cost. It's not based on usage or anything else. It's just a flat fee that's charged to the residents every month. The proposed fee structure as shown there would have residential customers, which make about 88% of the total accounts for with Excel, pay about 40% of the total fees, while the non-residential customers, which comprise 12% of the total, will pay 60% of the fees. So while residential customers comprise the vast majority of utility customers, they would contribute a smaller share of the total franchise fees compared to the share of city property taxes. And I have some information in there about what people pay for taxes depending on their classification. So let me pause there and see if there's any question. We have Eric Simonson from Excel Energy here that I've been working with in the language of this agreement, and he can certainly answer any questions or anything he would like to say, but I believe we're both in agreement on this language. We spent a lot of time on it, so appreciate his help navigating that, but if there's any questions you may have for Excel on the ordinance, if there isn't, or after that, I would like just to talk a little bit about the impact of the franchise fees as you think about budget scenarios. Ultimately, we are looking for adoption of this. That'd be my request to you. That's up to you to decide whether you want to do that tonight. There would be multiple ordinances, as you can see in there. There's 2 ordinances first. You would want to adopt the electric franchise ordinance and the gas franchise ordinance. And if you are disposed to do that, then we have summaries of those that we would ask you to pass, and then subsequently, we would like you to consider franchise fee ordinances, one for electric and one for gas, representing these rates here. Then we also have a summary ordinance for that. There's a total of 8 different actions you would have to take if you were going to take that up here tonight. But let me pause to see if you have any questions about the actual franchise ordinance, and then we can go into some discussions after that about what some of those impacts and scenarios look like.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trojan. Are there questions on, are you talking about the franchise ordinance separate from the fee side of it?
Yes.
Got it, okay. Questions related to the franchise ordinances on gas and electric? All right, doesn't appear to be the case. Looks like we're able to proceed then on the fee side of it.
Okay, so as you know, we have talked a lot about the budget. You've seen some of this information before, and this is included in a memo in your packet here. Just want to walk through a little bit of what the impact on the franchise fees and the potential use would mean to our levy and to, more importantly, our capital funds. So previously I talked about 3 different scenarios. Scenario 1 has us not implementing franchise fees at all. So this chart looks pretty blank, but you'll see in the other scenarios it gets more filled out with the franchise fees. So really not changing our funding levels at all for capital expenditures. And I've highlighted the right-of-way funds, which are the street fund, streetlight fund, pathway and parking lot fund, and the public works equipment fund. Those are tied to the right-of-way, and in future scenarios, you'll see that's where we'll put the franchise fees primarily into. The other capital funds are ones that we've identified as being problem funds that we need to address. And the thought there was either a combination of maybe some franchise fees, but more so reallocated capital levy that is going to the right-of-way funds would be repurposed there. As you can see, there's a bunch of zeros there. So under this scenario 1, we would not implement franchise fees and not increase capital spending at all. And that would lead to 11.54% levy increase, or $15.71. I should back up. This scenario also assumes that we are hiring the 15 firefighters and the 7 police department employees. As you know, we received grants to underwrite a large portion of that, but there are still some levy support that we need to do as part of the 2026 budget. So this is more of a reference point if we don't do franchise fees and just continues a pretty status quo budget as we've talked to up right now and not add any capital. This is where it gets a little more busy here, and hopefully you've had a chance to look at this a little bit, but just to point a couple things out here. So once again, we're talking about the right-of-way funds. We currently have $1.63 million of tax levy going towards those funds. I would say that if we adopt the franchise fees, we would swap that out with the amounts you see here for a total of $2.1 million of the franchise fees, of that 2.4, going towards those capital funds. For the sake of trying to make sure we stay above 0, we would retain $100,000 of levy of this 1.6 for the public works equipment fund. Under scenario 2, we would then reallocate some of this $1.6 million to the tune of $320,000, that take it from there to there, to help other funds, the fire department fund, the parks department fund, the park improvement fund. This column on the left is the current levy, so you would add these numbers together to get a larger amount of levy we're going towards these funds. My suggestion with the police department and vehicle and equipment fund, under previous iterations, we talked about using some repurposed levy. Since we are generating a little bit more than we originally estimated back earlier this summer in franchise fees, would to put $264,000, which is actually more than the levy we were proposing. It was $225,000. So it bolsters that even stronger. So you would use some repurposed levy for these other capital funds and some franchise fees. And if you remember, I mentioned about the waiving of the permit fees for the engineering services fund. We look to add $50,000 of franchise fees to that. So all told, you can see the totals there. We would be using $2.4 million of franchise fees, $420,000 of repurposed levy. So if you do that math, 1.6 minus 420 of levy funds, you have $1.2 million of existing levy that's already in the system that we can repurpose from capital to operations, which brings that 11.5% levy increase down to 7.59%. And you can see $10.61 for the median value home. If you add the franchise fees, the resident would pay $16.61 more than they pay today. So that's scenario 2. We really do a complete job of utilizing the franchise fees and really shoring up our other capital funds. And I have some graphs to show you here in a little bit.
Is that, so just to compare that 1661 to the scenario 1 with no franchise fees and no additional capital spending?
That's 1571.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
$1 more. So scenario 3 is very, very similar. We would use franchise fees to go towards the right-of-way funds as I've designated them, but we're taking all of this $1.6 million levy and put it towards operations. So we would not repurpose $100,000 here, and these other funds we would not. We would still look to have franchise fee goals towards the Police Department Vehicle and Equipment Fund, and if you remember, that's one of our ones that's most urgent as far as running out of money. And we would still use the Engineering Services Fund or put franchise fees of $50,000 into that. So once again, still use $2.4 million, but really no additional capital spending beyond what we're doing here, the franchise fees. So once again, you take the $1.6 million of repurposed levy that's currently going to the right-of-way capital funds, put that all towards the operations, and that gets down to 6.22%, or $8.83, or $14.83 for the monthly impact. The impact to the capital funds can't be talked about because I think they make some significant changes to that. Let me just pull this up here. All right, so if you remember, the pavement management funds, one of the right-of-way funds, we replaced $1.1 million of levy support to $1.36 million, and the fund goes from negative in 2037 to being fully funded in 2024. So this is scenario 1, no franchise fees. Scenario 2, you can see we are pretty much fully funded for the next 18 years. Scenario 3 would be the same thing because once again, in both scenarios, we're using franchise fees. So scenario 2 and 3, that would not change. Just moving right along, we'd replace $21,000 of levy support for the streetlight fund with $96,000. We go from looking like this, once again, scenario 1 is no franchise fees or additional capital spending, to looking really good. That slight blip we have in 29-30 is something we can certainly work around. I'm positive. So in the scenario 3 would be the same because we're reallocating the franchise fees. Pathway and parking lot fund, we'd go from $255,000 of levy support to $365,000 of franchise fees, and it goes from being negative, looking like that, to being positive for the next 20 years. So that's really, really great. And scenario 3, once again, is the same outcome. The Public Works and Vehicle and Equipment Fund, if you remember, we had this mixture of primarily franchise fees, but just a little bit of levy. So we replaced $235,000 of levy support with $100,000 of levy support and $285,000 of franchise fees. We go from, cursor there, from being negative in 2028 to being fully funded in scenario 2. Now remember, we're using repurposed levy for this. Scenario 3, where we don't use that $100,000, look what happens. Just that little amount really affects the long-term trajectory. So I can go back here. You can see here in scenario 2, we're in pretty good shape, but just taking out that $100,000 of levy support really changes it. So Police Department Vehicle and Equipment Fund, we would propose to use franchise fees to shore this one up. So $225,000 of reallocated levy. I'm sorry, this is an old note. I didn't change that. Ignore that. But it goes from being really negative really quick in 1 year to being better. still being negative, but we have until about 2030 before it's really negative. I think what that helps us do is buy some time to continue to focus on that fund and really look at all the needs for it. And scenario 3 would be the same because we're using franchise fees in those two scenarios. Fire department and equipment fund. You can see what it is without franchise fees, and we're just barely above water in 2035, which coincides with the replacement of the electric fire engine, which we certainly have borrowing opportunities to do at that point, but this shows you the fund balance. We make that better. It's much more positive for a longer period of time. Still will dip below in 2035, but it's much more healthier fund with scenario 2. Once again, we're reallocating levy funds. But remember, in scenario 3, we are not using any reallocated funds, so it's actually the same as scenario 1. So it's the exact same thing. Parks and recreation vehicle, once again, very negative pretty quickly here with use of franchise fees and with the use of the reallocated levy in scenario 2, we're positive for the next 20 years, which is great. But scenario 3, we're the same as scenario 1. So we don't use that reallocated levy. It really makes an impact on that fund, and that's something we would need to address at some point in the future, most likely with levy funds, future budget cycles. Then the Park Improvement Fund, I think this is the last one. You can see without franchise fees or additional capital spending, we do become negative in 2032. We move that dip up, so there's a few years of negative in the 2030s, but something that a little bit more manageable. But once again, if we take scenario 3, we're not repurposing that capital levy, so we're the same as scenario 1. So hopefully that gives you a graphic understanding what that impact is of the franchise fees. So the last thing I just want to show is, and you saw this at the last meeting here too, is kind of a chart showing the monthly impact, the different scenarios. So starting on the left is the 2025 budget. This is a reference point. The next bar is scenario 1, which shows a total of $15.71 increase. That's all levy increase on the property tax bill, or 11.5%. The next bar is scenario 2, where we use franchise fees and reallocate some of that capital levy. For that median valued homeowner, that's $10.61 per month more, plus $6 of franchise fees. So that's $16.61. Scenario 3, once again, using franchise fees, but not reallocating any capital levy and using all that savings for the operations. We do lower that to $8.83 as a monthly impact, but adding the $6 gets you to $14.83. And the last bar is just a reference point to what the Finance Commission recommended, no more than a 10% levy increase, which represents a $13.72 increase to the median valued home. So just want to show that for reference. So that's a lot of information. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it, very similar to what I presented before, but I just wanted to show beyond anything else what this impact of the franchise fees could do to our budget and levy. And part of the reason I'm asking for consideration of approval tonight is that it does help narrow some of the scenarios, at least. I suspect, unless I get either really firm direction, that if we adopt the franchise fees, then we're really looking at 2 scenarios instead of 3. We still need to have that discussion at the budget and levy time. But certainly at your discretion, if you want to hold off on approving franchise fees and franchise, I would suggest you adopt the franchise ordinance, but wait to adopt the franchise fees until you have a fuller budget conversation. We can certainly do that. I'm thinking from our standpoint, it might be easier for us to bring back a staff and more precise things, but that is up to you. So with that, I'll stop and ask if there's any questions and listen to the discussion.
All right, questions from the council, and I just wanted to clarify a couple of points. I think I had heard from a resident who was looking into this and asking questions about it, that actually if we impose the franchise fees, we have to waive the permit fees. Is that correct, or is that resident not necessarily correct in that research? Without naming names.
No, you don't need to waive it. It's a strong ask by Excel.
Okay, it's still a negotiated thing at that point. Yeah. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then if the fee ordinances are adopted either tonight or some subsequent time, at $3 for residences and the other rates for the other businesses. Are those subject to changes every year, or is it fixed for 20 years, or some hybrid of that, or what's the experience other cities have, or what's your understanding of that?
So they're fixed until we change them. So if we don't change them for 20 years and leave them at $3, that's what they will remain. If the city council wanted to raise it by 50 cents, let's say, for the residential rate, so it's $3.50, we have to go through this whole process again and adopt a new fee ordinance, notify Excel, make sure that they're aware, and go through this whole public process. So we can't unilaterally just change it. We can't just wake up one day and want to change it. It has to go through a process. So it would be in effect until it's not, until it's changed by the council.
Right, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Other questions from the council, Councilmember?
Well, just to follow up on that, so, but part of this would have been done because we would have the franchise fee ordinance in place. We just have to change the part that would be the dollar amount.
Correct, yeah. You would amend, you probably have a new ordinance,
Yeah.
but you would just change those rates. And the franchise ordinance, which is the bigger document, will still be in place for 20 years.
Continue.
And I don't imagine that changing, but the franchise fee ordinance could change if the council wants to pursue a different rate in future years.
All right, other questions from the council? I did have one other question, and that was as to the choice to do the fixed amount versus something based on usage for each of the categories. Is that something that the city considered both approaches and decided one was better than the other? Or was that sort of a mutual decision with Excel? Or can you talk a little bit, and then how the rates were set? Because I noticed that ratio of commercial payment versus residential on these franchise fees is weighted much more towards the commercial than on the property tax side. So if you can just talk a little bit about those two questions.
Yeah, so certainly under state law, city can adopt a flat rate or a variable rate. As we looked at it early on, as a city staff, we fell more on the flat rate because of more certainty. With the variable rate, you have less certainty each year what's going to be brought in. That variability also affects the ratepayers or the customers. If it's really hot or really cold and they have to use more energy that particular month or that year, they're going to be paying more. So we thought there would be more sense, or better to have a stability versus some variability that we can plan on year after year. So that's where we landed pretty quickly. And I think Excel is very supportive of that and would prefer the flat rate just for the ease of calculation. Your second part of your question was?
So as to the setting of the rates and how those were determined,
Yep.
given that it's a little different proportionality than the property taxes in Roseville anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, we looked through different scenarios working with Ellers and working with Excel and really trying to minimize the impact as much as we could to the residential areas, kind of landed conceptually at the 60-40 split and kind of looked at numbers and how to get there. And so what you see here tonight represents that 60-40 split. We looked anywhere from $2 to $5 as the residential rate, and $3 we felt was something that was somewhat acceptable, I guess, and we could get there by adjusting the rates of the non-residential, so we kept that 40-60 split.
On the overall?
On the overall.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that additional insight. Other questions from council members? All right, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this matter this evening? All right, doesn't appear to be the case. So we do have the two matters of the franchise ordinances themselves with 4 actions essentially associated with those, and then the whole question of whether we want to impose the fees. And I guess I'll turn it to the council for consideration of maybe that broad topic about timing of looking at. I guess if we don't want to impose the fees, then that makes it a quicker discussion. But what do we want to talk about in terms of timing of that decision on the franchise fee side of things, given we've got these now 2 nights of budget hearings coming up at our next 2 meetings, at which members of the public may wish to weigh in on it. Councilmember Bauer.
Someone has to start. I think, we've always been try to be, I feel like, transparent about what we're talking about doing with these franchise fees and not trying to, it is a source of revenue. Residents have to pay it. I think we've been above board on that the whole time. I feel it would be inappropriate for us to make a decision on franchise fees now when the expectation is for us to have an overall budget discussion with the public on December 1st and December 8th at those times. If we make a decision about the fees now, we've kind of moved in a certain direction, maybe not having the public's voice being heard. So for that reason, I'd be, more inclined to do the franchise fees discussion later on. We're not talking, we're still down to just 3 scenarios here. I feel like after the, I don't feel like that's difficult to overcome and to be able to make a decision on the 8th, just those 3. I think it's been presented enough times. I think we should, at this point, all be very comfortable with it. I think at this point, we're just awaiting public feedback, assuming people show up for that.
Other feedback from council members? Councilmember Schroeder?
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Bauer that I think at this point, we've looked at it and talked about it, and I'm assuming as individuals we've come to some conclusions on our own. Yet we still want to have that input from the public on where they're feeling about it, because obviously we're representing them. So I think it's a good idea, and I think. Especially as it seems like we're down to like 3 scenarios here. I do obviously passing the ordinances tonight is kind of a no-brainer. It's those have been, they're very similar to what we already had, and that doesn't obligate us to anything. That just gives us the mechanics to have the flexibility to do it if we go that, for sure. So yeah, I guess Councilmember Bauer made a very good point about the public buy-in on that. So I could wait, and it'll be interesting to see, because technically, on the date on the property statement it said the 8th, but verbally it said the 1st. So I would hate to have to add another element of confusion to say, oh yeah, never mind, we've already decided. So. Yeah, makes sense.
Right. Councilmember Strong.
Well, I understand that we have been elected to represent the people, and people, you don't have to go far to get their information. I do think we have to look with some fiscal responsibility at these charts. And if you're still unclear based on these charts where we need to make choices, I'm surprised. I think when we look at what our current situation is, if we are going up to 11.54% without any franchise, and we're looking at what we can do to shore up some of our other funds with the utilization of franchise. I don't know, Mr. Trudgeon, were you taking in, when you were looking at the fund balances, were you taking into account the franchise fee infusion each of the years thereafter, or just on a short-term basis?
No, it was for each year afterwards.
Okay.
That's what moved those charts.
So, I mean, I think if we see, the money has to come from somewhere, and so when we look at it, I'm very hesitant to look at scenario 3, where we would go with the franchise and not fund our really important fund. I mean, the money, we might all be gone, but someone's going to be stuck with the basket going, where are we getting these funds? So if we short ourselves, there's going to be, someone has to pay it. So maybe it's $1.80 less per month now, but we put ourselves in a really dangerous situation fiscally as a city to fund our things that we have committed to. If we're committing to a 3-year SAFER grant and the police and fire and a long-term grant like that, we can't just say next year, never mind, we don't want to do it. So I think we have to look beyond our noses and beyond what's happening in not just 26, but we have to look beyond just 27 and thereafter. And some of us will be still around and don't want to have them coming with pitchforks. I realize nobody wants to have it go up beyond $13.72 per month, but our portion, I think I saw some people responded, oh, our county taxes. Well, unfortunately, we don't have any input on that, and those will probably go up as well. But we have there is a set of standards that we've provided in our city that people do expect, especially as Councilmember Schroeder has mentioned many times, cutting public safety is not a popular thing to do. And so, I don't know, I feel like saying that we're going to just steal from one hand to pay the other, I feel like scenario 3 doesn't buy us really enough advantage. If people are still really unclear about whether or not they're going to go with franchise, then maybe just 1 and 2. But I think the staff is owed at least the opportunity to know where we're headed, and so they can plan. Because if it's any one of them, that's just, I don't know. I don't think that really gives anybody a good idea, and I think it just leads to confusion when we get to that last day. There's a lot of charts for people who maybe aren't real chart friendly. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No offense.
Could I have a clarification on that? So are you suggesting that we look at like scenario 1 and 2 versus 1, 2, and 3 is what you're thinking?
I think
I hear let's take action on scenario 2 tonight.
Oh, maybe. I mean,
Okay.
I would
That's
be.
what
I would
maybe
be
that's-
inclined.
That's what I was
I would
wondering.
be
Yeah.
inclined to do that as well. But I think if we were going to have either 1 or 2, to me, if we're going to have the franchise fees, I feel like shorting all of those other funds in order to get to scenario 3 isn't advantageous for our organization. But
Okay.
that's my opinion. I would say if we were going to cut 1, I would recommend scenario 3.
Thank you.
Councilmember Groff, thoughts on timing of discussion and decision?
Just a quick clarification on what you just said. If we're going to cut 1, you would recommend 3 being cut.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're looking at 1
That
and
was-
2.
yeah.
These two.
What I would say is I'm obviously in favor of voting on the franchise ordinance tonight. The other, I can see both sides of this, but I am totally leaning towards number 2 myself personally. If other council members want to have input from the public further on this, we can certainly do that. I don't know that that'll happen. Sometimes we have some people show up for these conversations. Sometimes we have usually the 3 or 4 that come every year. So those are my thoughts on it. I really would like the franchise ordinance to be addressed tonight, and I would feel comfortable voting tonight on the others if the rest of the council wants to. The fee.
Okay.
So one more, city manager, if we decided that we were going to pare it down to 1 or 2, would that be helpful at all or not?
Councilmember Schroeder, yes, because we can have more concrete information, bring it back to you what those resolutions would look like on the 8th as far as levy, and don't know if there's any other discussion around the budget. So, but we will take your lead. So if we might have to make sure we have information at the ready, depending on what the council wants to do at the last meeting.
I'm going to speak in favor of keeping 2 and 3 as options out there. I think that especially if we do hear from the public at the 1st and the 8th before making the decision, and the only reason I say that is because that it's still, I think, significantly better in terms of dealing with long-term capital funding issues than scenario 1, which doesn't do anything. And it might end up being sort of a compromise position, and why not have that on the table as part of the conversation that the public can react to? That would be my only argument for not necessarily eliminating one of the scenarios this evening. I think it's probably just as easy to have, one more potential resolution available, or have the dollars ready to read off a cue card into what we fill in on the resolution. So I'm fairly comfortable with that, but I guess I'd rather give the public the opportunity to look at the scenarios that we're looking at, is my point of view, because I don't know that I've come to a conclusion myself as to how I want to go on scenarios 2 or 3, but I am generally, I prefer, as I think I've stated at prior meetings, I do prefer dealing with more issues with as little impact on the residential taxpayers as we can, which does make the franchise fee approach more attractive. I think the question just is in exactly the doing of that, and so that's my 2 cents on the scenarios. I would be leery of pulling one out at this point, mostly for the benefit of the public. Once again, as was noted, depends on how many show up and who shows up, but also there's a fair number of people in the public who follow these things even if they're not at the meeting.
That is true.
So that's my 2 cents. Councilmember Strawn, I think you had your hand up. Or did I?
Maybe did,
Did
but I
change-
don't have
change
anything else to
something?
say.
I
Okay,
think she was
got
just
it.
coughing.
Okay.
Again.
It's the season.
All right. So it sounds like it appears that there's a fairly good consensus on the council to take the fee side of it up on the 8th. And it sounds like also consensus to take up the ordinances themselves tonight. I can't remember if we provided the opportunity for public comment already or not.
No, we
did.
You did.
Yeah,
You
okay,
did.
thank you. Thank you for helping me with that. So we are at the council decision point on, certainly on the ordinances to put the franchises back in place. I do want to just check, I don't imagine that there's a reason we have to adopt each ordinance separately. We could do both as a single motion.
We're all looking at the attorney.
Well, the attorney's the only one that's going to be able to help us on this one.
I think that's fine. In this circumstance, I think that's
Okay,
fine.
and same with the resolutions for the summaries.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So that'll help us with our number of actions we have to take, if that's all right. So probably the first thing would then be a motion to adopt the franchise ordinances for gas and electric, both as a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, that's been moved by Councilmember Groff, second by Councilmember Schroeder for the ordinances for the franchises. All right, discussion on that motion. Councilmember Groff as the maker.
I think we've discussed this quite a bit, and I want to appreciate the thoroughness of the, express appreciation for the staff and all the work they've done on this, because this is not a light lift. There was a lot of details here, and there were, many meetings for we as council to go through the numbers and explore them, so that was appreciated. I also want to thank Councilmember Schroeder for bringing this forward from, I think it was the League of Minnesota Cities, so
Thank you.
I think it's a really good option to have out there for us as a city, and I think it's a tool we need in our toolkit to help us with our budgeting.
Right, as the seconder, Councilmember Schroeder.
I'm appreciative of the conversations we've all had around this, and we looked at this and the work that's been put into the ordinance, and appreciate that Excel is a partner in this, and so it's another good tool to have in the toolbox, as Councilmember Groff said.
All right, other discussion on the motion. Once again, this is a motion to adopt the franchise ordinances, not including the fee part,
Right.
just to be clear. Discussion on the motion. It includes the provision to have fees.
That you can have fees.
Right, but it doesn't actually provide
Adopt
for the
number.
fees. Right,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. Other discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes, and we have our franchise ordinances in place for gas and electric. We do need to consider publishing summaries of these ordinances, and I believe we could do a single motion to adopt the resolutions authorizing publication of summaries of those
So
as a
moved.
single motion. Councilmember Strawn moves that.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Groff to authorize, to pass the resolutions authorizing publication of the summaries. And once again, this does require a supermajority, which in the case of a 5-member council is a 4/5 vote. Keeping that in mind, all those in favor of adopting those resolutions authorizing those summaries signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, meeting the 4/5 supermajority requirement. And as has been noted, we will defer the decision on imposing franchise fees up or down, and what those might be if we go in favor of those to our December 8th discussion. And I just want to note by commentary that I think, Mr. Trudgeon, you've presented this a number of times over the last several meetings, and I think we're zeroing in on something that's hopefully going to be pretty clear to the public in the process of the 1st and the 8th. So just wanted to give you that review. For you could put it on Yelp and then.
See what happens.
All right, I should probably put a quantity of stars to that, right?
Thank you.
All right, thanks once again to everybody for their work on this, including the Finance Commission for having weighed in fairly early in the process and being interested in the process going forward. And once again, we encourage members of the public, if you have input, to either participate in the hearings on the 1st and the 8th of December, or contact council members in between at your leisure. And with that, we will move then from our business items to a couple of council meeting minutes that we've got before us, actually council and EDA minutes. These are the minutes of the November 10th council and EDA meetings, and those have been reviewed by council members, and corrections have been provided to staff, and the revised drafts have been before the council for our consideration this evening. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes from the 10th? Otherwise, a motion to approve as presented would be in order.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder to approve those both minutes as presented from the November 10th council and EDA meetings. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Those minutes are approved. That then brings us to our consent agenda, which we talked about way back at the beginning of the meeting. Mr. Trudgeon, could you give us a few points of summary of the consent items before this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Agenda item 10A approves payments in the amount of $974,750.66. Item 10B approves expenditures to hire, to hire Pipe Services Corporation to televise sanitary and stormwater sewer pipes in 2026 for a cost of $35,000. Item 10C approves licenses for 1 pawn shop, 10 recycling haulers, and 13 solid waste haulers. Item 10D approves a renewal of a short-term rental license for 1820 Chatsworth. Item 10E adopts a resolution approving a planned unit development concept and final plan to allow for a home design that is different from what was approved in 2005. Item 10F approves a sanitary sewer system interconnection agreement with the City of Falcon Heights. Item 10G adopts a resolution requesting funding from Met Council for the private property inflow and infiltration grant program. Item 10H approves entered into professional services agreement with Brown Companies for geotechnical work in the 2026 construction project. See, my notes are cut off. What else do we have here? No, I don't have it. The last two are the Roseville Firefighters Relief Association benefit increase of 2.7%. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Based on a resolution adopted many years ago about a cost of living increase on an annual basis tied to the Social Security COLA increase. The board is aware of this coming, and we're asking for your approval tonight. And the last item, item J, is to approve a position of Cadet 2 for the fire department. This is going to help us in having flexibility in recruiting for the 15 firefighters we're looking to hire in 2026. And that is the consent agenda.
Great, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. I believe the increase on the Firefighters Relief Association, 2.8% instead of 2.7
Yeah.
Per the Social Security COLA. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Is there a motion on the consent items?
So moved. Second.
All right, moved by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Groff to approve those items. A discussion on the motion? Councilmember Strawn?
Yes, I did have some questions about 10C, and I had brought this up to Mr. Trudgeon today during the day, and some information was sent to me in follow-up to the conversation we had a few months ago as a council about where yard waste, where recycling, where trash, and where organics went. I just wanted to follow up, and I guess in reviewing the applications that were provided to us, there were some things that were not listed, and one of them was the recycling for Waste Management, who is our recycler. The location of the recycling drop was not listed. And then there are 3 curbside Walters and Ace that do not provide yard, and then there's 4 that don't provide organics. And I just wanted to make sure, it'd be nice that someone who might select those from our list of potential haulers might be aware that those services are not something that's available through them. So maybe in publishing that information to our residents, people know that, if I go, obviously if you called, but if you didn't think about it at that time, you got signed up and suddenly you found out. But I wanted to make sure we knew where Waste Management took their recycling, and then if they had a yard or organics drop somewhere, that page may have just been missing from the information, and I didn't know. Were we able to find that page?
Well, I was wondering if as our Public Works Director comes up on this one, as well as our Assistant City Manager, I imagine that there is something contractually in the recycling contract that talks about where Waste Management takes their recycling.
Correct.
City recycling, anyway.
Correct, yeah. Waste Management takes it to their own, they have their own MRF site, can't recall what that stands for. But yeah, they have their
facility.
Yeah, there you go. But Waste Management has their own,
Okay.
just like Eureka previously had their own facility.
Okay.
And Mayor, Councilmember Strawn, in looking at the applications that I see, I think some of the pages are duplicative, or I'm sorry, two-sided. And I
Oh.
think some of them did not get scanned in, so that's why I think some of them do not show those locations.
Right, and I think it was kind of inconsistent which pages were in which item. So I just wanted to make sure, I guess if they was shared, and like Anderson, it looks to be a dumpster only, but they had all of the items checked as their services that they provided in the city. So just some continuity, it's hard to know, but there's a lot of chatter on some of the website, Facebook neighborhood groups and stuff sometime about what services are available. And so there seems to be a little bit of an possibility that if we list them as a vendor on our site, that somehow there's an endorsement. At the very least, it'd be nice if people knew what services they provided in helping them make their choices. And organics, hopefully we won't need to know that forever. But yard waste in relation to our yard facility and leaf facility in the future, I think it's really important that people know if a service, if they provide that service, and maybe if some of these other places that don't currently offer it knew that there was a interest, they maybe would be able to find that as well, or look into that as a need in the future. So not to withhold that, but I just thought it'd be good if we knew where that information was going. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed. That passes unanimously, and those items are approved. That then brings us to the future agenda review, Mr. Trudgeon. There aren't too many agendas left in this year.
Only two, Mr. Mayor. So, and we've talked about them already tonight. So December 1st and December 8th, last two meetings. So next Monday and the Monday following. So on the first, we'll hold a public hearing about the budget and levy, as been mentioned. We do want to spend some time and have the Finance Commission come and talk about their work plan. They've had a couple items that have been brought forward by a resident for asking Finance Commission to look at the cost of trails and bike plan. So before they spend any more time going down that path, so to speak, we'd like to have a check-in with the council, see if that's something worth their time. We also would like to amend the ordinance regarding the dangerous animal hearing officer. As my understanding currently, I am the hearing officer, so I have to hear appeals on dangerous dog designations, and we like to have a third party do that, who's much more qualified than myself. And then also looking to appoint a city council member to the Civic Campus Final Design Stakeholder Group that's starting to come shape here. And as if you recall, we asked for one council member to serve on that stakeholder group. On the 8th, we'll continue the hearing for the budget and levy, not lay, but levy, and then eventually approve the EDA and city budget levy, the fee schedule, utility rates. I had mentioned, I think maybe in the packet, December 1st, looking to have a closed session about the VFW and talking to them. They're not going to have their offer to me until next week sometime, or yeah, I guess you could call it an offer. So we would like to get that in closed session to provide an update and get some direction from the city council at that meeting. And then, of course, we'll have the consideration of the franchise fees on the December 8th meeting as well. And just a reminder, December 3rd, we have the Rules of Business Exchange over at Cedar Home from 4:30 to 6:30.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. Are there questions on the future agenda review? Or reports, announcements, communications, future agenda items for council members? All right, that leaves us with one business item item of business before we end this meeting, and that is to go into a closed executive session under Minnesota state statutes, which allows cities which are required to have open meetings to go into closed session in certain specific exceptions, one of which is to discuss attorney-client privileged information. In this case, there is litigation involving the city, which we are prepared to receive an update from our legal counsel on this evening, and that does, as we understand it, fall under that exception to the open meeting law, so it would be appropriate to go into a closed session for that purpose. And before we do that, I did want to, just for the members of the public, as well as for our cable or our streaming operator, producer, what happens when we go into the closed session is that we do have to reopen before we adjourn officially. but usually the practice has been not to return to the council chambers or to return to camera for that reopening, because it's essentially a formality, and then we immediately adjourn the meeting. So I just wanted to make the public aware that as soon as we take action on whether to go into this closed session, that would be the end of the publicly available video of this meeting, and that's why. And also make that information available to our producer, who will probably want to know that. With that, I don't know that there's any more discussion I need to provide or background as to the reason we're going into the closed session, unless the attorney wishes to add anything.
Just, Mayor, if you could cite the statute for me, please.
Gotcha. I can tell you it's 13D.05, but the subdivision is 3B, as it relates to attorney-client privilege exception to the open meeting law. All right. With that, then, it would be appropriate to have a motion from the council to adjourn to closed executive session for that purpose.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder, to adjourn to closed session for that purpose. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed. That passes unanimously. And will adjourn to closed executive session at 8:59 p.m. And once again, we'll be going off camera to end the meeting otherwise. And we'll see you at the next meeting.